Okay. Atheism or Devin, ready whenever you are.
I'm here. I am bewildered by what I'm witnessing. You have taken this Discord thing. This is a lot different than my Discord. You got a bunch of people. You've been doing this for a while. I guess it's been growing exponentially. Is that what's been happening?
Yeah, I mean, like, what our goal here, right, is to like, or my goal specifically. I don't know about the rest of my team, but my goal is to make sure that we foster like an environment where people can come together and meet people from all over the world with like different perspectives, right? That they wouldn't normally meet in real life. Because I mean, just personally, like I grew up with my father listening to Rush Limbaugh nonstop in the car, watching Fox News. Uh, so I was exposed to nothing else but like the right wing perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I was like the kind of person that would watch Glenn Beck. Like I would record Glenn Beck and watch it like religiously every day. Um, and it took me a long time to kind of get out of that and start to explore like other perspectives and try to understand why other people might think the way that they do about and come from other positions. So I think that this is really, really helpful. Like a space like this is really helpful for helping people break out of that
Mm.
and get exposed to other people that have different perspectives that they just wouldn't run into in their everyday life with their family or close friends. So
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see the logic of that. And I assume that Discord is not really monetizable, so you're probably in this for the principle of it.
yeah, I mean, I mean, personally, I've spent like I don't know, like $500-600 on the server,
Oh,
just because I care. Like it's just like a passion for me, you know. But we don't make any money on this at all. So
okay. Cool. Well, I like that. So you seem to have a gaggle of just different ideas and opinions. And although I am a little bit hesitant and skeptical when I see this many anonymous people, anonymous men collected, it usually doesn't end up good. There's a stench of shit. It reminds me of a bathroom stall. But yeah, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. And I see some questions pouring in here, some interesting. Some of these questions make me think of questions to ask the questioner. But yeah, I'm ready when you are.
yeah, we can do that. So to start us off, like, why don't you give us kind of like a brief like summary of you, if that's
Mhm.
possible, like what your experience has been on YouTube and getting into like the debate community and all that sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah,
what
the
made you
debate.
want?
Okay, well, I'm a normal person who's right about everything I say and think. Um, I am not a debater. I know there's a certain amount of people who go and they take debate class and they just like debating for the sake of it, like Christopher Hitchens or somebody. I'm not really into that. I don't need to score points. I don't need to beat someone. I find a lot of gratification in just expressing myself, adding my voice into the mix. If people like it, so be it. And I have a certain percentage of people who Patreon me and allow me to continue to do this for a living. Um, but I was going to get my rocks off and express myself either way. But YouTube has been incredibly fun for me. I started talking about atheism because I felt the need to express myself on that, and nobody had for such a long time. In other words, my entire life went by, and I couldn't explain why I felt like everybody was crazy. And so I got to do that, and then I moved on to other topics, and now I just basically do whatever I want, whatever comes down the pipe, current events, etc. But it's an incredible place, and actually Discord has impressed me, and it seems so effortless, the technology, and yet very powerful, really subtly powerful. And I think we're witnessing the dawn of Discord becoming a mainstay, right up there with all the other platforms.
Cool, thank you. So I'm just going to jump right into the questions because we've got a lot of them coming in.
Okay.
Let's go with Valenci. Now, Valenci, do you want to ask this question yourself, or do you want me to ask it for you?
Hello, Akhi, how's it going? My
Oh,
question, yes, my
are you
question is,
are you from Israel?
I am Syrian, Akhi. I'm the
Oh, okay.
opposite.
That was close. Close.
Yeah, I'm not really, but okay. Is there a moral obligation of spending atheism or providing other religion or proving, sorry, other religions wrong? And if so, what it would be?
Well, my first question is, what do you mean by spending atheism?
Um, Spreading
Oh,
atheism,
spreading,
did I
spreading.
say?
Okay.
See.
I'm looking at the text doesn't read as such. Is there a moral obligation to spread atheism? No, that strikes me as weird and wrong. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a net bonus. The idea of spreading atheism is a little bit framed oddly. Atheism is about the rejection of the ludicrous claims of the religious. So I would say spreading criticism, spreading reason, that is a good thing. Highlighting those things and emphasizing them. I think if you just did that, then religion will sort of wither and die on its own. So I'm not really out there trying to change people's minds, because one of the reasons is it's such a massive problem that if you actually did that, you're going to waste your life. It's going to be an uphill battle, and you just can't be that concerned about other people on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. As far as proving other religions wrong, no, I mean, I can understand the impulse to try to do that if you think it's harming people. It especially gets a little bit problematic when kids are involved, which they always are, obviously. But I think what you'll find is that atheists such as myself are not that concerned about it, because we've been raised, I was raised as an atheist. I was never indoctrinated. And so this is a dead issue for me. This is very unexciting. It's uneventful. And I've decided to just live my life and associate with people who I intellectually respect, which are atheists. So I live in atheistic countries, atheistic parts of atheistic countries, and my affiliation with religious people is fine. You could be friends, and we're never going to be close, and I'm never going to fully respect them. And so be it. I mean, a lot of my fans are religious, but they're wrong about that. It doesn't mean that they are not worthwhile human beings or don't have a lot of upside to them, but it's embarrassing.
If I can continue and say, as if I hope I understood your point of actually it depends on where you're born and what city you're in or place you're in. That depends on what moral obligation that you have. Is that what
Well,
you're...
yeah, and if your accent is from the Middle East or anywhere
Yes,
near
I
there,
am Syrian, yeah.
okay, well then it's a different question. I mean, it's probably more useful to divide this between Christians and Muslims, because the Muslim question and pushing back against that religion is far more of a priority, and there's a lot of immediacy to that. It's a severe situation, and the consequences of having these theocracies, dictate how life is going to be lived is brutal. Meanwhile, in the Western world with Christianity, it's viewed as a joke. It's like Kirk Cameron, and it's not something that we really need to be up in arms about. We can sort of just watch it slowly slide into the trash heap of history. And meanwhile, we can get on with our lives, which is what we want to do. Nobody wants to spend their lives doing damage control and trying to uplift people who are not bright enough to have figured out the easiest question in the world, which is there are no invisible people. This is all magical folk tales and nonsense. And it's about time you realize that. And, stand up to your parents. I get it. Your parents told you this is the way it is. You love your parents. I understand. Part of it feels like a Shakespearean tragedy. It feels like Oedipus. It feels like you're killing your father and fucking your mother to tell them that they're wrong about religion. But it's time you fuck your mother. I recommend it.
Actually, in the terms of Islam, it's not just your father or your parents. It's actually the whole society, and losing the religion will cause al-ishraq, which is basically you're dead to them, right?
Yes, and
So I think the moral obligation does differ from a person.
For sure, and it's compounded in the Muslim world for precisely the reasons you're saying. And you have to reach a critical mass of people who dissent, who don't believe, and who institute in those societies the ability to not believe. This is why a secular country is important. So yeah, I fully support anybody who's making an effort in those regions.
Cool. Thank you, Valencia. I appreciate that. Next question is from Wicked. Wicked, you are unmuted. Wicked? Oh no, Wicked, don't do it. Oh
Nah,
god,
a lot of
it's
people do
terrible.
that. When you're in a room with me, it happens. It's really awkward.
Yeah, it gets really awkward.
It's a
Okay,
presence.
Wicked, you got to fix your mic or something. I'm gonna move on really quickly to the Great Mew, who wants to know what you think about fascism.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to think about fascism. It feels like a trick question. I'm against it. I'm not Antifa, but I'm anti-fascist. I don't see what possible case could be made for it. I'm not even sure what the questioner even is referring to, what brand of fascism, as if, we can split hairs on which one is better than the other. I'm not sure if it's worthy of any time or consideration.
Okay, pretty simple. Let's move on to let's
I'm
move
against
on to
Nazism too, by the way, just as a bonus.
okay. I think that kind of leaves off Hyosung's question. You want to know if you're a crypto fascist. If you're not a fascist, you're probably not one of those.
No, but I'm into
Uh,
crypto. I do follow Bitcoin and the ups and downs of the market.
oh, you're one of those Bitcoin fascists.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go with this is a weird question. Paradox wants to know what your views on relationships are.
If that's the end of the question.
It's just what are your views on relationships?
I like these. These guys are skilled. These are open-ended questions. This is like good advice to give somebody on a first date. Ask the woman open-ended questions. Let her talk. What are my views on relationships? Oh, I'm assuming he means romantic ones. I think they're important.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they're important, integral. I think everybody's learning on the job, so everybody is prone to make a massive parade of failures throughout your life. I feel it's very difficult to find a person where both of you are not showing major character flaws or inexperience or just human frailty. It's easy to screw up. Like, it's far easier to destroy something than to create something, and creating and holding a relationship and strengthening it over time is difficult. It's difficult to live with someone. Even yourself. If you had a clone of yourself, you would hate that person and you would fight that person. So we have to have a little bit of patience and understanding that relationships are difficult and yet worth it, I would say, in the end, and essential. I'm doing it. I'm on Discord, baby. I'm answering these questions. Come at me, bro.
Okay, so Wicked says she's got her mic fixed. So Wicked, you're up.
That's a girl?
Can you hear me?
Oh my God, that's a curveball. You didn't say girls were involved. Jesus, I thought this was MGTOW.
Both on here.
What's up, Wicked?
So I know you talk about race and stuff sometimes. So I was wondering how closely you think race and culture are linked. So, like, as far as I know, the only apparent like brain psychology difference between races so far, like, pretty much average IQ. So do you think it's even like really possible for those like small brain differences between races to give rise to like really specific outcomes and like culture, like cultural traditions and stuff that might predispose members of certain races to sort of like gravitate towards those cultures, or more do you think like the development of cultures was just sort of a response to like the various racial and ethnic groups, like to their environment and stuff, like throughout history?
Well, yeah, it's a complex question, but I would first say I don't think there are small differences with the brain. I think they're quite significant. I mean, you could ask it or frame it this way. Do you think that lower IQ people are more likely to commit crime? Because that's a very not controversial statement, and it's a known fact. So if we can just understand and accept that. Also, the abundance of testosterone. If you have a higher degree of testosterone, there's a greater chance you're going to be aggressive and violent. This is why men are more aggressive and violent than women. And so if blacks, say, which is what we're talking about when we talk about race, nobody's splitting hairs about Eskimos and Koreans. If blacks do have lower IQs and higher testosterone, then yes, we can predictably expect different results. As far as culture, the word culture is often misused. It's often a bullshit buzzword that is so vague and nondescript that I don't find it to be useful. But I would say there are links, there are correlations. It's not necessarily. So like the thug, violent culture of blacks in America, gangster culture, all that doesn't mean, like, there are blacks in America that have not been a part of that. Large populations of blacks that had nothing to do with that. So that we've decayed into that because of the breakdown of the family unit. And I'm talking about the American context. You could go outside, and by the way, travel does a lot of things for you, but one thing it does is it broadens your understanding of the world. So if you go to England and you see a black guy, he doesn't embody the culture of being a black guy in Britain. He's a British guy. That is his culture. He's British. Now, you could subdivide and say he's black British, and there are some nuances there, but the overwhelming thing is he's a British guy, and he has British sensibilities. So his skin color is whatever. Same thing in Germany. I mean, so I wouldn't try to simplify it or oversimplify it. And yet I would try to be honest with it. There are differences. Not all cultures are the same. Some cultures are being problematic in disproportionate numbers, and we should recognize that.
So you would pretty much be okay with maybe like not like the whole ethno-state thing, but the thing like maybe we should just sort of let in the people who support our values and who, you know, possibly have higher IQ or more intelligent, who would fit in and like better, that would be cultural assets.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I wouldn't put an IQ barrier on entry into the country, but I wouldn't
test or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't deny its existence. I would say, yeah, values-wise, I would be very concerned. So if you are obviously against our values, which I would suggest being Muslim is, unless you're completely a non-religious Muslim who is willing and able to culturally assimilate, I would declare that as being confrontational, and it's just not going to mesh. And that's been proven time and time again. Immigration policy is a weird one. I'm definitely against an ethno-state. I mean, especially if you're talking about 100% white. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, people of color, immigrants, they are, so many of them, incredibly wonderful, talented, incredible people that you would be robbing yourself by not knowing them, by not having them contribute to your society. That being said, I'm in favor of white countries. And I've just done a video on this. You know, a 70% white country, how about that? I shoot that as a goal. Obviously, you can't control these things, breeding rates, etc. But I definitely don't want to witness the decline of my race, my people, to being a minority. And I don't think that's a controversial opinion. I think that is the opinion that almost everybody on the planet has, if they're honest with themselves. They just felt it was so obvious they never needed to say it. But as we watch whites dwindle from 95% to 90 to 63% to in 2050, we're going to be 40-something%. Do you think this is going to be good or bad? Is it good or bad for white people? Is it good or bad for me? For the country? Again, do the research. Yeah, it's all there.
No, cool. I pretty much agree with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you, Wicked. Okay, next question. Next question is going to be from Ryder. Ryder wants to know, when do you see religion dying down to the point where atheists will no longer be a minority? Our lifetime, 100 years, 200 years, etc.
Depends on how long you plan on living, but yeah, I think it's actually doing better than we think. I think a lot of religious people are lying to themselves or the polls. So for the longest time, if somebody asked, what religion are you, you would say Christian because you thought that meant you're a good person. You thought it was the only thing to say. What are your other choices? Atheist, ooh, that sounds nasty. That sounds like Satanist. I'm not going to say that. So in America, I'm very content with the progress. And, you know, look at the numbers and then look at the youth numbers, which is obviously the next generation. It's going in favor of atheism. And this is not shocking. It's like, you know, religion was fucked when everybody learned how to read. That was the first blow. But then the internet and, you know, YouTube and, oh my God, these new atheists and Hitchens and Harris, they're talking, oh, they're debating, they're embarrassing us, they're proving us wrong in every video. And there's a 13-year-old kid who's coming back from Sunday school going, I didn't buy any of that today. I'm going to dick around and type in, oh, wait a minute, what? Who's this? Sam Harris? What? Yeah, he's going to be an atheist. And this is changing very rapidly. Still, there are institutions that don't accept atheism, like politics, for example. You know, you can't say you're an atheist. So slowly these things are going to change. And, you know, in my world, in the YouTube world, it's absolutely commonplace to be an atheist. I mean, it's absurd. When I see a non-atheist, I almost want to go, oh, cute, let me pinch his cheeks. This guy's LARPing. He's spending his whole life LARPing, thinks he's going to live forever. It's like a throwback to the past. The guy should be walking around in black and white. But so to me, it's a darling thing to witness. But I'm happy with the progress, especially if you go to England or other places in Europe. You got the Czech Republic, the most atheist country in the world. Yeah, we're going to win this. The bigger issue is now the Muslims and Islam, who are far behind where the Christian world is.
Okay. Speaking of the Christian world, there's a Christian here that would like to talk to you. He wanted to ask this question in voice chat, so I'm going to unmute him now.
Okay.
Darth, go for it.
Okay. How is your atheism rational when it violates its own principle criterion when accounting for the foundation of reason, such as what the absolute of existence is?
That wasn't your argument. How do I account for the basis of my reason? Is that what you're saying?
To be an atheist or an agnostic is to violate the very principle you stand on, because if you withhold belief in God because God is not rationally justified, what's the rational justification for the impersonal absolute, which would be the grounds for your reason?
Now, this is some very cryptic talk here, but let me ask you,
No, not cryptic, very straightforward, sir.
Not really. What do you think the null hypothesis is? What is the default?
I'd like an answer to my question.
Well, it's incomprehensible, your question.
What is the rational justification for the impersonal absolute that
What
you
is the
derive
impersonal absolute?
May I finish, please? The impersonal absolute would be whatever that ultimately exists, which exists as an ultimate ground for reason, as opposed to a personal absolute of God. So since your criterion for belief is that God would be rationally justified, and in the absence of it, you either deny or withhold belief, then since that's your principled criterion, what's the rational justification for whatever the impersonal absolute is in existence that would ultimately provide for your capacity to reason?
Reason and rationality are innate abilities that we have, that we possess, which help us decipher what is bullshit. The religious make a claim that there is a God. You have no evidence of this.
You're not addressing the question.
No, you're not. I'm addressing the major question.
No, I said the impersonal absolute, sir.
I don't care about your term, the impersonal absolute. That means absolutely nothing to me. I'm using my reason to decipher the bullshit of your question.
I'm not asking you about your reason. I said, what is your rational justification for
Let me cut to the chase.
May I finish? Can I qualify my question, because you're not understanding it? What is
You're not
your
explaining
rational?
it because
You're over talking me again. I'd like to repeat the question that you're not understanding. What is
I'll
your
slap you in your face. If I ever met you, I'd slap you.
What is your well, sir, you're not addressing my question, so I need to repeat it. What is your rational justification for the impersonal absolute, which is the ultimate grounds upon which you claim reason, as opposed to there's no rational justification for the personal absolute God? So the question is, what is the rational justification for that which is the impersonal absolute that provides you with reason?
Do you have any ranch dressing for your word salad? That made no sense. I'm happy that that makes you happy, but it is mental masturbation and it's worthless and not worth my time. You have to prove to me that there's a God. Present evidence. I have reason. What about it?
Is your reason the product of matter, energy, causality, and laws of nature?
Yeah, it's a product of my brain. Yes, it is a transcendent phenomenon.
Okay.
It is a description of how my brain logically functions.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a rational justification for causality and laws of nature, which would have to exist in order for you to reason?
What? Yes, the universe must exist. Causality, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a rational justification for causality, which would be a necessary precondition for you to reason?
Yes, many things had to happen for me to be here with a brain, with my reason. Yes.
No, you're just simply restating the claim. I said,
could you speak in terms that are not intentionally trying to be vague and misleading?
No, I'm not being vague. I'm being very specific. Do you have a okay? You keep cutting me off. Do you have a rational justification that there are causal connections between events that would provide you ultimately with the grounds of reason?
Am I going fucking crazy here?
Do you need causality for reason? Do you need causality for reason, sir?
No. How about that? Let's grip and rip. No.
Reason is the product of spontaneous eruptions.
No, it's a product of
Either
evolution over millions of years.
I'm not
We've
discussing
evolved
evolution.
brains.
I'm going farther
That's the
back.
answer. That's the causality.
No,
Cause
sir.
and effect.
Does evolution depend upon causal connections? The answer is yes. Do you have a rational justification that there are indeed causal connections and laws of nature in order for you to reason?
Repeat this.
Do you have a rational justification that the impersonal absolute that you would call causal connections actually exists?
Yes, we just discussed that.
No,
My brain evolved the way
I
it
didn't
did
ask you
over
about
millions
your
of
brain.
years.
I didn't ask you about
Where do you
evolution.
think my reason came from?
I asked you about causality and laws of nature. Do you have a rational justification that there are actual causal connections which would provide a foundation for you to ultimately reason?
Are you being intentionally obtuse?
Is causality a necessary prerequisite for you to reason?
Oh my God. Sure, on the basis of I needed to have these millions of years of evolution to be the person I am, with the brain I am.
I'm talking
But
about
that's the answer.
foundation. Well, evolution requires causality and laws of nature, and I'm asking you to give me a rational justification for causality. Do you have one?
Why do I have to justify causality?
Because causality is a necessary precondition in order for you to reason and reason as an atheist. Do you have a justification for causality?
It doesn't make sense what you're saying. A justification for causality.
Is
I don't need to justify anything to you.
Is causality and laws of nature a necessary prerequisite for your capacity to reason?
It's not a prerequisite. It's what happened. It's reality.
Okay, so you do affirm then that causality and laws of nature is a necessary precondition for reason. Do you have a rational justification for causality?
Somebody airlift me away from this dude. I cannot deal with his face. I can smell how fat he is. That was the most worthless. Can you imagine people, they have circles where they talk like that back and forth. And it means nothing. That guy's probably a Jordan Peterson fan, by the way. That guy probably faps to Jordan Peterson, guaranteed. Fucking worthless. I will never get that time back in my life. And I got Doobie to thank for it.
Yeah, you'll learn to love me, I promise.
Oh.
We're gonna move on from that.
Awful.
I don't think that was going anywhere.
I apologize to my atheist fans. I mean, seriously. Wow. Sorry to put you through that.
Okay. We've got something a little bit softer, I think, from Plu. Plu, you are unmuted.
Boxers or briefs?
Plu, I swear to God, Plu, if you're not there.
I heard laughter.
British son of a bitch.
Oh, hello. So I was muted.
Hey, go for it.
Hey, right. So my question, do you think the British grooming gang scandal, which found 9% of the suspects to be Muslim Pakistanis, committed this scandal and rape based on their religious beliefs? And if so, is Islam and religion to blame?
Again, I feel this is a trick question. It's like, is 2 + 2 4? First of all, I'd like to say I detect that you are gay. And I like the sound of your gay British voice.
Well, I'm not gay, mate. No, I'm not.
Okay. I apologize, and you are straight as an arrow. Yeah, the grooming gangs it's not an accident. Like, for example, you could have a theory that, oh, no, it's something about the Pakistanis in England. It's their culture. It's not religion, it's culture, even though culture is primarily religion, especially when it's a totalitarian religion like Islam that controls everything. If you want to run an experiment, say, okay, maybe they don't do grooming gangs in the Muslim world. Go research that. And specifically, it's not Muslim men raping and grooming Muslim women, which happens, by the way. They're doing it to the non-believers. So so that's very key. That's very important. And half of these people will tell you. This is not even a mystery. You don't need Sherlock Holmes to figure this out. So yes, I would agree. It most definitely is Islam. This is a massive problem, and I'm fully on board with exposing it and shaming the British authorities for not moving their ass on this and being honest about it and reporting on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was going to read an extract from an article from one of the victims of the grooming gang scandal, but she says they made it clear that they raped me because I was non-Muslim and not a virgin, and because I didn't dress modestly. They believed I deserved to be punished and that I had to obey or be beaten. They called me a white slag and a white cunt as they beat me. And I think that's just, Yeah,
it's ugly. It's an ugly thing, and it's really strange that this guilt people have over race, especially white people in the first world, it extends to things that have nothing to do with race. But because race is involved, the Pakistanis are brown, It's a brown person religion. These ideas get into it and they paralyze people in fear. And it's insane to me. And the people who are speaking honestly online, here's what we need to do, slowly but surely. And I understand why people are hesitant. I understand why some people are anonymous. Their money is wrapped up in this, their well-being, their futures. We cannot just say this stuff anonymously online. You have to be a human being, a citizen in your society, and declare this. Do it at Speaker's Corner, do it at a coffee shop, do it at the local political rallies, whatever needs to happen. You have to be like, I'm Devin Tracy and I'm telling you I'm against Islam and here's 100 reasons.
But you really can't do that in the UK though. The UK is so strict.
And that's the problem. UK needs some freedom of speech laws instituted ASAP. It is terrible. And it's one of the worst parts about that country. And I'm a British citizen. I'm a dual citizen, but man, there's a few things that Britain does that they do better than America, but freedom of speech and freedom to criticize religion, Jesus, that's not one of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cheers.
Yeah, welcome.
Cool. Thank you, Plu, for bringing us back from that pit that we were in just there.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Zwe, ZWE. What happened to your original Atheism-is-Unstoppable YouTube channel?
Yeah, it was deleted. It's the second time my main channel has been deleted. I'm going to be writing an appeal page and putting it up on my website, atheism-is-unstoppable.com. And it was bad. It was terrible. 3 strikes for completely ridiculous reasons. Actually, two of the strikes on my main channel were because I showed a human ass for a few seconds. One of them was I didn't even realize the ass was in the video. It was a clip from The Last Temptation of Christ. And Christ was getting onto his crucifix and they show his ass. Now, this is a Academy Award nominated film. And it's just like a couple seconds of man ass. Now, if you go onto YouTube, there's tons of full frontal nudity everywhere. Go type in naked yoga into YouTube and have fun with that. Then there was an ass. You barely saw it. It was like an ass in profile that a fan of mine, this girl, she wrote something on her ass and sent it to me and I put it in my video. I mean, this is so childish. Now, they could have said, like, let's age restrict that video, which would have been a pussy move by them just to do that. They chose not to do that. They chose to give me 2 strikes and my video my channel was deleted. And the third one was for hate speech because I talked about the alt-right. I was actually criticizing the alt-right. But I had the word alt-right in the title, and so the bot, it was an algorithm, it just took it down. So it is really that simple. I'm going to show it to you. I'll show you all the evidence of that. And the people at YouTube, the trusted flagger and all the people that work with them, they don't help me because they say another channel of mine had been terminated. And because of that, that means I am just like an evil person. They're not going to help me with this other case. And I talk about why my 3rd channel was taken down, 3 completely ridiculous reasons. It shouldn't be shocking to anybody at this point. And it's also highly ominous that the people that are doing this, that are pulling the strings and making these decisions, are against me politically. They don't like what I'm saying.
Speaking of you politically, Capper wanted to know where you stand on the political compass. And also, he also wanted to know if you wanted more political questions or religious questions, or if it mattered.
I take whatever you got. I mean, it's an honor to have anybody be interested in anything I have to say. That's the truth. So I'm open to whatever questions. But political compass, I'm in the bottom left quadrant in the dead center, like right around the dead center of the bottom left.
Oh, okay. Alert Lord wanted to know, with identity politics seemingly making a return in Europe in response to Islamization and mass migration, do you find yourself agreeing with his sentiment or simply find it distasteful?
Which sentiment?
I guess identity politics. Probably white identity politics in Europe.
Yeah, I think that it's an unfortunate reaction, but an understandable one. I think that we are playing defense. Like, we are reacting to an influx of people with terrible ideas. And so what we used to take for granted, which was our identity, we now have to voice and acknowledge and defend. Because if you don't do that, bad things will happen. We cannot go through life neutrally, hoping for the best, you actually have to take initiative. You have to be preemptive. You have to fight off against people that wish you harm. And the idea that Islamism is not a threat to us is ludicrous. Or the idea that white people somehow should be vilified in America, that somehow being white is a problem, or that we are responsible for the sins of our great-great-grandfathers is just madness. And therefore, I totally understand why people are now talking about themselves as being white, and how the group of people known as white people should be stood up for. I think you can extend it to that. I don't think that being white should be exclusive. I mean, it's not ideal. I think that if you share values, if you're cool, if you're a productive member of society, you're not criminal, and we can agree on certain things, then sure, be my neighbor. I don't care what race you are. That should be the way that's progress. Instead, what we have is fractioning and division based off race, which is our tribal history, and which some of the weak-minded people out there are profiting off of as they help contribute to the decline of our society and to violence. They will have blood on their hands. This is predictable. This is happening all the time.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Naho. Naho wants to know, what is the most convincing argument against any kind of deity in your opinion?
Well, it's a very hyper-specific question. We don't have to make an argument for the non-existence of a deity. Here, the most convincing thing to say is that any argument for a deity is pathetic and weak and non-compelling, uncompelling. It just doesn't work. It's not there. And I'll cut to the chase. Spoiler alert. The reason their arguments don't work is because they're wrong. There is no God. Now, I'm happy to take it further and say, I will tell you there is no God. I won't just say that, I don't agree with your claim that there is a God. I'll tell you there is no God. And if you want to, shorten this up and cut to the chase on that, the reason there is no God is because there's absolutely no evidence that there is a God. End of story. This is why you have to take a step back and understand, how do we know anything? What is the burden of proof? If you don't understand those things, you're going to be spinning your wheels and wasting your time trying to prove a negative to a dude. But you're trying to prove a negative to a guy who wants it to be true. So first, get the religious person to admit that what they want this to be true. So they're completely biased. The atheist doesn't necessarily want it to be true that there's no God. I mean, you guys think you're going to live forever. We are recognizing that we're mortal. We're not that special. We are sort of an accident, a glorious, sacred accident, but an accident of this majestic universe. This is not something we want. Now, the religious person will try to turn that and be like, no, you do want it because you don't want to have God judge you and you want to live a hedonistic lifestyle. No, that's bullshit. I'm an Eagle Scout. Okay, I'm not out there raping and murdering because I don't believe God's going to judge me. This is the crux of the situation.
Cool. Okay, next question is going to be from Skeptical Strom, who is now unmuted. Go for it.
Hey, Devin. So I'm a big fan. I've been listening to you for a long time, like probably 5 years. Anyway, my question has to do with cultural Marxism. I was wondering if you've ever heard the term, and if you have heard it, if you've given any thought to whether or not that's what you're actually fighting against when you go and make videos against TYT and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it sounds like you listen to Sargon.
Yes.
Yeah, or Peterson. But yeah, I understand it. I understand the crossovers and the parallels there. A lot of these people on the left, far left, aren't even aware that they're doing this. They're attracted to it, the idea of it, and they don't understand the historical precedent that's already been set. So they're prone to make the mistakes of the past. As far as Marxism, it could be a little bit hyperbolic. We got people, although I recognize there are actual like communists and super far left people out there who are completely absurd, but your run-of-the-mill regressive, I'm not sure if it's that fair to call them cultural Marxists, or it's the same problem I have with white genocide. It's not really a genocide, because genocide is sort of reserved for when you actually kill like huge numbers of human beings. So I get why people try to ramp it up with the way they talk about it, the rhetoric, but it's bad. I mean, I think it should be explained why not viewing people as individuals and why, categorizing people by group is fundamentally just flawed. And I think that message is getting out there slowly but surely.
Well, can I say maybe something that you haven't heard before regarding this, real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so what I understand of it is that basically Marxism, or Marx himself, made some predictions that didn't go so well regarding workers and capitalism, etc. And so what's happened is, since these communist countries failed, is basically Marxism has kind of morphed. And now what you see is, instead of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, it's morphed into white people being the bourgeoisie and basically people of color being the proletariat. And if you kind of look at it through that lens of oppressor and oppression, or oppressee, I guess, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep, I agree. I mean, this whole term white privilege, you're dividing people, and for sure, that's why white people always raise their eyebrow and they're like, wait, we're oppressing you? How? What's going on? What are you talking about specifically? And you're right. It's just this general vibe. They want to slap that label on white people and then use the same politics that were used back in the day in Russia, but just in the modern context.
Well, and in Germany too. Basically, Hitler did the same thing with the Jew that's happening to white people now, I would argue. I mean, it's just the beginning stages right now, I think.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's, rah for your team. You have safety in numbers. There's strength in numbers. What was it that Caesar said in Planet of the Apes? He said, one ape weak, or apes together strong. That was his thing. He sign language that. And that's what people are prone to do. We've been doing this stuff since we were cavemen. And, people are trying to raise the red flag on this and blow a whistle and be like, hey, white people, we're blowing our rape whistle. We're getting raped here. People are being racist. It's not going to end well. But we're seeing it, and it's ramping up. That's the other thing. With each passing day, people get a little easier, dropping a little racial slur, a little casual racism towards whites. It's just commonplace. I mean, shit, they'll do it on a morning talk show, late night TV, no problem. You mix that with self-loathing white people who are happy to sort of bring in this trend, and it's a toxic mix.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks a lot for taking that question. And if you could look into it a little bit more, and if you decide that maybe it actually is a thing, and mention your videos, I think that would be awesome, because I really do believe that this is inherent to figuring out what is causing this problem and what we're seeing. In the same way, like how it's important to say, no, the problem is Islam. I think in this regard, it's very important to actually figure out what the problem is here with all this progressivism. And I believe that it's just basically morphed communism into identity politics. So
I think you're right. Putting a name to it is very important. It's actually important just linguistically for how humans think about abstract things. If you don't name it, it doesn't really exist. So if you can name it, that's good. But then the next phase is to explain why. Because what is the appeal? Why would they be attracted to this idea, and break that down psychologically? So yeah, I will consider that, and I might make a video about that after some research.
Thanks a lot, man. You're the best.
Thanks, man.
Okay. So that invading Catholic asks, doesn't atheism encourage hedonism?
No, not in any way. Hedonism encourages hedonism. Atheism, no, it's nothing. It's a void. In fact, if you want to talk about something that is actually a something, you could talk about humanism. But humanism doesn't encourage hedonism. I mean, look, you should have balance in all things. Don't be hedonistic if you're being harmful to others or yourself. Have balance, have some responsibility. Clean your room, in other words. Go read Jordan Peterson's book, but ignore all his woo-woo, which is like 99% of the book.
Okay. Next question is from Anti-Intellectual, who is now unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want me to read my question, or do we want to do this?
You don't need to read it specifically, just ask the question.
Okay, so in your view, if you are defending, let's say, liberal values or classical liberal values, not a majorative sense, specific an idea of rights, what justifies them outside of, let's say, a God paradigm, or how they were written in the first place?
What justifies them? I mean, I think, I would lean on Sam Harris and what he talks about, and in terms of finding a code of ethics that is not reliant upon false supernatural claims or revealed truth. I mean, it's all just common sense. As far as what justifies it, nothing essentially. There's no booming voice in the sky that says anything. It's the same thing that justifies why, if you say the word book to me, you and I both know what we're talking about. It's because you and I have agreed that the word book means a certain thing. So you and I have to agree. Huh?
It doesn't make sense to say it's common sense or it's self-evident when, let's say...
To me, I think it is.
Well, it's your sense, not common sense then. If I
exactly.
say, like, right to bear arms and have to agree, have doesn't agree, Like,
that's
doesn't
perfect.
mean it's common sense.
That proves my point. I think I don't think people do have the right to bear arms. I think that's a terrible law. So I'm completely anti-gun. Now, I think that's common sense. Other people disagree with me. That's part of the process. So we have to determine who is right. How are we going to agree upon a set of laws that's going to guide how we live together? This is what politics is.
Can you specify, like, the justification by Sam Harris, as I'm unfamiliar?
Well, he talks about you want to increase well-being and eliminate suffering as a basic core set of values. And if you accept that, then yeah, there's a variety of decisions you can make that are going to lead to more well-being for a greater number of people and less suffering. Wait,
it presupposes that I have, like, this goal in mind to reduce suffering and, like, increase well-being, or is defined as, what if I'm not, let's say...
That to me is intellectually just preposterous. I mean, why throw up a blockade there? That what you're doing right there is like maybe an intellectual exercise to do in, buried in some classroom in academia, but it's very obvious why removing and eliminating suffering and promoting well-being is a good thing. If we can't agree on that, then we need to pause the conversation and just talk about why good is good, why bad is bad. Are you really not sure why eliminating or minimizing suffering is a noble thing for us to quest for?
No, let's agree that I have, let's say, some overlap with, like, your idea of limiting suffering and increasing well-being. But let's say I don't want to increase the well-being of somebody in Africa. However, there are a lot of people who are, let's say, universal about this reduction of, suffering around the world. And hence they see discrimination, or let's say racism, or any sort of, non-pure altruism as a blockade towards, let's say, this increasing of well-being. Would you agree with that characterization?
Yeah, I think that there are many problems, many interesting discussions to be had. For example, like you say, there's people in Africa are not doing well, they're suffering. So why don't we spend our gross national product or our tax money to help the people of Africa? Why don't we just give it all away? Well, that's going to lessen my well-being. And now I'm going to be suffering, maybe not to the extent they are. So now it's, okay, whose well-being are we prioritizing here? You could do the same thing with abortion.
So exactly that. So even if we agree that well-being or increasing well-being is like our goal, we can agree on, like, what group or what entity we actually are trying to increase the well-being in. Of course, you understand that we have to discriminate against some people for this thing to work in the first place. So I agree. It is not going to be an objective standard by which you can construct ethics or have a construction of rights. Because
the main framework can be objective, but there's going to be a lot of gray area. It's never simple. Nobody's saying it's simple, especially on the gray issues. This is why there is a debate about fetuses, for example. Who cares about the fetus's well-being? Personally, I don't care. But I could hear the argument that, wait a minute, you should care. That's a potential human. They have a soul, this and that. I don't buy it, but I give preference to the adult human being and give them, I want them to have control over if they want to reproduce. I don't care about the fetus.
Okay, so the question would be, how can you characterize it as a debate, or let's say, like, a verbal disagreement if I'm arguing for my increase of well-being, you're arguing for your increase of well-being, and we are essentially all this kind of, like, political discussion that we have is about, trying to pursue our own goals that do actually run against each other. Like, you understand that it's not just groups, it's individuals, you can also say, that do increase their well-being at the expense of other people. Like, that's the go-to thing.
I think we need to work together and argue and present arguments and try to find, the best way to go about living life. But to expect to find answers from a book or from the sky, there are no easy answers, and all we have is, all we can do is talk to each other about this and try to inch our way towards progress.
Are you assuming the same thing as Christianity? Or let's say that there's, good potential in every human being, or that there can be reasoned with and, convinced to this moral code of ethics that doesn't have, let's say, the spooky man of hell or whatever?
Well, I would argue that, they already do this anyway. They use their own intuitions. This is how they interpret the Bible. This is why they ignore 90% of the Old Testament. They're already doing this. Half of them aren't aware of it. And look, there are some good ethics that come out of Christianity. I would say that, it doesn't matter much because there's a ton of bad ones. But, thou shalt not kill. I don't think Christians should get credit for coming up with this idea. The golden rule, another. Every culture on earth has figured this out. But whatever, it's enshrined in their religion, fine, keep the good parts if it makes you happy. But it's the genetic fallacy. Just because you got that ethic, you think you got it from Christianity, doesn't mean it necessarily had to come from Christianity.
The question would be like, oh shit, somebody's sewing something. 1 second. Okay, so would it be a universal doctrine of increasing well-being? Or let's say how much it spreads around the world in like your paradigm?
Well, how much would it spread around the world?
Yeah, to whom it applies.
To whom it applies? Well, I would hope that it applies to everyone. I think that this is a fundamental want and need and desire of every human being. We all want to pursue happiness. Now, look, if somebody has a different idea of happiness and they want to, have sex with kids and self-harm and do whatever, I would have a problem with it so long as they're harming somebody else. If they want to do that to themselves, we can coexist on some level. Not everybody has to be in total lockstep, but we do have to, put up a scaffolding of laws that sort of spell out some of the basics. And we do have that. And it is ever-changing and evolving as the times change and as we learn more things and as new issues arise. Like cloning. What's the right thing? What's the well-being of cloning? Is this a bad?
Wait a second. I mean, what you're defining here is just like individuals having preferences and essentially coding it in like this language where it's all about well-being and not harm others, whatever, when it's essentially just beneficial for their well-being. At the same time, I would say, well, what if just taking stuff from you and not being punished is actually increasing my well-being? Like, nothing stops me from, let's say, meeting you in a dark corner in like a highly urban environment and, stealing your wallet. If there are no consequences, of course.
Well, if you have a radically different definition of well-being, and if you're going to tell me that a serial killer thinks it's in his interest and to his well-being to kill people, then obviously it's going to run into, once again, just common sense and logic, and also majority rule. I mean, that's what a democracy is. We're not looking for one person to tell us how to live. We're looking for a communal understanding that it has gone through the trial and error of time, and that makes sense. And nobody's declaring that we're going to nail it first time out. We've got to have a system that is flexible and has the ability to change.
Devin, I think you're running around. Like, you can't pinpoint why exactly people care about this stuff. Essentially, they just have to like come together and like say where is the line drawn between this and that. But it is you can presuppose stuff. At the same time, you can see what the outcome is going to be. What is the difference between people coming together, who gets to vote for this or like this policy? Then increases well-being. The difference between like helping Africans and not helping Africans, also another like issue that you can't address because, well, again, like it's really vague. It's not an objective standard by which you can argue. It's just like, let's just have a democracy. Why? Well, why is democracy then like the best way to pursue? Just assume it. Then like that's what it is.
You remind me of a child, of a toddler who continually asks why this, why that, ad nauseum. It doesn't.
Well, yeah.
It's not impressive. It's not an intellectual exercise. I mean, if you want me to spell it out to you like you're a child and describe why well-being is good, why the pursuit of happiness is good, why not harming other people is good. That's why we have laws. It's like, do you want me to tell you why we should fund public education? Why is that
we
one
already
of our...
agreed on. Yeah, I mean, we already agreed on like just that well-being is good. That's it. The whole thing was about
you
drawing
agree?
the line. Well, I was asking why because I was talking about your worldview, not about mine. I would just like spell that for you too, but you know. So,
Okay.
what about the line? You just say some democratic process has to be done.
Yeah. How
What
else
is
would
the
you
basis of
recommend?
that? Well,
What are the choices?
one
could have-
group increases its well-being at the expense of the other. Well, what is an objection here?
That's bad, because
Why?
we have to have checks and balances, because clearly people are going to look out for their own interests as opposed to the interests of other people. I mean, this is basically the difference between being on the right and left in American politics. You know, do you want the rich to get richer and fuck everyone else? You know, me and my family, we're going to be fine. But, oh yeah, those other people, the poor people, screw them. Universal healthcare, fuck them. I can afford healthcare. I don't care about them.
Yeah, I see no objection to that. You just say, well, because somebody is going to be offended, I guess. Oh, I'm not, getting my stuff, my fair share. So what? But I gotta wrap it up, I guess. Nobody's asking me.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Intellectual. So we're going to move on. Next question is going to be from Chrissy. Chrissy wants to know if immigrants should be made to take some form of intelligence/culture test before being allowed into the country.
I don't think intelligence test, but I think a culture test is interesting. I think it's more informative and useful than asking them who the third president of the United States was, which we do. We grill all these people coming in about, tell us what the third line of the Declaration of Independence. It doesn't matter. That's just all, kissing our ass for no reason. It's just trivial knowledge. What I need to know is, what do you think about gays? What do you think about the Jews? Why are you a hateful, are you intolerant of cartoons? Those things matter. And, we could be polite to the end of time, but what we're doing is we're playing the violin as the Titanic sinks. And, I don't want to be stiff upper lipping myself into the Atlantic Ocean and freezing to death like Leo DiCaprio. I'd rather be honest. I mean, especially, damn it, if you're anonymous online, you have no excuse. You should just be completely real. You have no stakes. You're an anonymous anime icon. You're risking nothing. So be honest.
Okay. Next question is going to be from, let's go with Actual Communist Boy. He says, if you think cultural Marxism is a problem, can you name something that Adorno or Horkheimer were wrong about?
Did he just name drop two authors I'm supposed to know about?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no idea who those people are. I'll tell you two things I do know about. The Smurfs and the Bates Motel, which is on Netflix. Those are two things I do know about. But if you think it's impressive to drop names of authors I don't know without, could you do me the honor of paraphrasing whatever the fuck they were talking about? I'm busy living my life. I don't have the cliff notes for whatever dude you're referencing.
I don't even think he's in here, so I don't think we're going to get that from him,
but
unfortunately.
It's a high and mighty, it's a power move. It's, hey, have you read Patrick McPherson, his work?
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, you haven't? Oh, really? Well, I know you haven't because I just made up his name. But what it did was it put me in a position of power and authority over you. Oh, you didn't read Patrick McPherson? Oh my God, scandalous, noob.
Okay, next question is going to be from, let's go with Tom. Tom wants to know if you think Islam is a greater threat to the future of humanity than the fundies in the U.S.
Oh, yes, easily.
Yes.
Especially depends on your GPS. If you talk to a guy in Pakistan who's an atheist, or Bangladesh, yeah, it's a major threat. The fundamentalist Christians are hokey. They are Leave It to Beaver. They are cheesy. They are plastic. They are like Mormon types. They are a threat, but it's a mild, minor threat, and they are completely been put in lockdown. They are being controlled. There's still, a battle to be fought there. Don't get me wrong. And I have fans and people that contact me. They're in the Bible Belt. They're surrounded by these communities. Their entire family, their whole world is this. So for them, it matters a lot. But I'm on the outside looking in. I don't I don't mess around with Muslims or Christian fundamentalists. So
Okay.
yeah, I sympathize with the people that have to deal with those groups, but yeah, they're not equal.
Okay. Next question is from Moon. Moon says, how do I tell African Americans that welfare is handicapping them from moving forward in society?
From a distance, using smoke signals. I don't know. I mean, first of all, I don't know if it's your place to do that, not because you don't have the right to comment on race, but because they're not going to be receptive to you as a non-black telling them what to do. Now, I wouldn't frame it like that. I'd frame it as, here's what I want to do to improve my country. These black people are members of my country. They are my fellow citizens. And by the way, whatever thing you're going to say about welfare would also apply to white people on welfare, of which there are more than the black people on welfare, not by percentage, but overall numbers. So I'm guessing that you think, too much of a welfare state is not conducive to helping the white poor people who are on it. So I'd phrase it that way. I would not try to specifically try to chastise their race and say, look, here's how you guys should get your shit together. It's their job to do that. Don't patronize them and pretend like you're their daddy and you're going to make it all better for them.
Okay.
Moon is black, by the way.
Oh, I thought the fact that she's black people would I assumed that she was white, but okay. In that case, then, yeah, if you're black and you want to help other black people, well, get ready to be called an Uncle Tom. Get ready to be called, whatever, all the names that are going to get hurled at you. It's not popular to speak honestly from within the black community towards the black community. You're seen as a traitor. That's a problem. That's the first hurdle you got to get over before you can even have a legitimate conversation about practical steps that can be taken. And by the way, a discussion about the welfare state, you have to talk about the single mother phenomenon. That is directly linked to that and is such a huge part of the problem.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for that. Next question is going to be from, let's go with Eggs. Eggs wants to know if you consider yourself an atheist or an anti-theist.
Yes. I think this is just more about your personal style, about how you like to self-identify. Because, calling yourself an atheist, that's a description. It's like calling me a man. You don't have to ask me if I'm a man. You could look at my dick and tell me I'm a man. So ask me if I believe in God. I'll say no. Then you can tell me I'm an atheist. I can't believe so many atheists out there, they're afraid to label themselves as an atheist, as if it's some group that you pay dues to and it means all these other things about you. No, it just means you don't believe in God or any God. That's all it is. Anti-theist, yeah, I'm most definitely an anti-theist in the tradition of Christopher Hitchens, because I'm not just telling you I don't believe in something. I'm telling you I'm against this thing. It doesn't exist. Here are the countless things that are wrong with it. I feel it's an insult to our species to be living a lie. There's no integrity in this. We have to, I grant you, being mortal is a fucked up situation. It is crazy that we are sitting at the tail end of billions of years of cosmic evolution, and we happen to be here, and we're finite. That's insane. It's difficult to grapple with that emotionally. That still doesn't mean we have to live a lie. Let's recognize that we're all in this together. Yes, it's fucked up. Yes, it's wild, but it's also glorious and beautiful. That is the whole, that is the nature of the human condition. Let's embrace it. And let's be honest, because if you don't value honesty, you're lying to yourself, and it's not the way to be.
Okay. Oh my God. Fuck you Oats wants to know, do you believe that a business should be able to reject service to any individual for any reason, even if it's something like skin color, religion, or ethnicity? I.e., do you believe in a completely free market?
No, I don't believe in a totally free market. I think that there are rules set up for a reason, especially when you have a dominant group. So a group where their numbers are in the majority, the vast majority. They're not going to want to work with you because you are, you don't agree with them, and your life is going to be, you're going to suffer because of that. So I think we need to have protections, and I believe in, equality, and to have people have access to goods and services. If you run a business, you're only running that business because the state allows you to do it, because you're benefiting from the state itself, from this structure we've created. So part of that is you're signing up that, look, you've got to bake that cake for that gay. You have to do that. I understand the argument that, oh no, let the free market, we will criticize anybody who comes across as racist or whatnot. No, I think we should have institutionalized laws that prevent that, and there should be punishments, fines. In your private life, you can do whatever you want, but it is different when you offer a business and a service.
Okay. Next question is from, let's go with Valenci. Do you believe that men and women have equal job opportunities in the developed countries?
Opportunities, yeah. I would say so. I would say I can see I'm a little bit sympathetic on certain issues. If a feminist is going to say that certain fields are a boys' club, yeah, they're right. It is a boys' club, and I would say a woman has to work harder to prove herself or get the acceptance of the higher ups, who will tend to be men. But then again, I also completely understand that if they have the goods, then they're going to get rewarded. They're going to get hired. They're going to get promoted. That's just capitalism. It's like, you could look at the UFC situation with Dana White. Dana White, the president of the UFC, was always against women fighting. He didn't like it. He thought it was an inferior product. He didn't think there was many good women fighters, and he was right. He was right. But then he changed his mind when he saw Ronda Rousey, and he said, wait a minute, this girl is entertaining, and bottom line, she sells tickets. So it's not like the NBA versus the WNBA, where it's like 100 or 1,000 to 1 profits when you watch male basketball versus female. With Ronda Rousey, she was bringing tens of millions of dollars every fight, and so he said, look, let's reward this woman. And Ronda Rousey is a multi-millionaire now because of it, because she proved it. Capitalism and the free market, all that stuff, it is vicious. It is brutal. It's like nature. Go watch a nature show on BBC. That's what it is out there. So if you want to compete, if the women want to compete in all these job markets, be my guest, but don't expect a violin to be playing and for us to be sobbing when you don't get the job or you don't get the raise, because welcome to our lives. We didn't get the job. We didn't get the raise. Men are competing with men this whole time, and nobody is sitting there feeling sympathy for us. So this is welcome to equality, in other words.
Okay. Next question is, it's going to be a little bit controversial. Shabir, the oat child, posted a version of it in text here, but he just DM'd me like a longer version of the question that I'm going to read out for you. So these aren't my views, just FYI. Mm-hmm. He says, as a black man, I'm concerned about the mixing of my race with inferior white human who are soft, physically inept, and weak emotionally. Personally, I support the. Oh God, I'm not going to read that, Shabir. Basically, Shabir wants to know what you think about race mixing because he thinks that white people are inferior genetically to black people.
Okay, well, congratulations on being a racist and being hateful and angry. I would disagree with that. I think that's absurd, and I think you're going to feel the effects of having a cancerous attitude like that. Race mixing, I'm fully in favor of it. Not that I promote it or suggest it, but if two people fall in love and they're of different races, so be it. Look, all of us are a mix of various races. My mother has Irish descent, my father English and Scottish. Just because it's different white groups, they're different ethnic groups. I mean, there are different groups of human beings. And quite frankly, most of the time when people mix races, they churn out attractive kids. So just do it for that reason alone. I see no problem with it whatsoever. If you think white people are inferior, then spend your life with black people. Be my guest. No, we're not going to miss you.
Okay. Now, as a follow-up to that, he wanted me to say that the white man is responsible for every single catastrophe on planet Earth. Why shouldn't we encourage white genocide to get rid of this virus?
Well, he's an obvious troll, but I don't think we did the volcanoes or the earthquakes. But yeah, white people are responsible for all the bad stuff. I guess you're not up to date on your African history, probably because they didn't invent the written word. So you didn't actually figure that out. So yeah, but if you go back and check out what the Zulus did, it's on par with anything white civilizations did. The only difference is because we have dominated history and won all the wars, we wrote the history, so you heard about us. So you might hate us, but you do know us. So we're on your mind, we're in your brain, we've burrowed inside of you, and you have an inferiority complex, so enjoy that.
Shabir, this white man just said he's inside of you. I'd like you to ruminate on that for a while. While we move on to the next question. Next question is going to be, oh God, this is another one from actual communist. When will the falling rate of profit cause the inevitable demise of capitalism?
The falling rate of profit? Is that what he said?
Yeah. When will the falling rate of profit lead to the inevitable demise of capitalism?
The profit of what? The overall profit? The profit, the income disparity? It's very vague, but it's also a loaded question. I don't think capitalism will fall. I think we will tweak the balance of socialism and capitalism, which should be done, and things will stabilize. I mean, maybe not in other countries. I mean, shit, I'm in Argentina right now, where inflation is out of control. Argentina is more stable than some of the worst places on earth, like Liberia or Zimbabwe. But like, I was here 4 years ago where I was living here, and I got 6 pesos for $1. Today, I get 28 pesos for $1. Now, it's not that extreme because the cost of living, fluctuates with that. But look, global economic theories and whatnot, I wouldn't be too concerned. I wouldn't hold my breath. I think we will find a way to find balance and stability.
So, communist boy, you're unmuted in case you want to explain what you meant by that.
Oh, good God. So the rate of profit is, in Marxian terms, kind of like the return on investment. And in general, Marxist economists find that the rate of profit falls. And this means that you tend to get less of your money back. So like if you invested $100 and you had a 5% return on investment or rate of profit, you have $105 at the end of the cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So you get $5. And so that rate has been falling. So like the rate was about 40%, I believe, in 1800, and nowadays it's about 10%. So projections would have it reaching 0 in 2060 or so. So the question is, if businesses get less, essentially if investment returns less to you, will we see the slowdown of the economy is the idea.
I think you could take actions against that. If we see a trend like that, I mean, you can manipulate the markets. You don't have to just watch something follow a trend line into perpetuity. So what do you see as being the straw that breaks the camel's back? You see just rampant poverty or our debt. I mean, the debt is the scariest thing. If that ever kind of goes belly up and people want to cash out, like if China's like, oh yeah, we need our money right now. The whole thing is a game. That's what's crazy about it. Maybe Bitcoin will change some of this. Who knows? But yeah, I'm not an expert. This is not my field. It's intensely boring to me, but it is interesting on some level.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Dimitri, you are up, and you're unmuted. Go for it.
Sorry. Apologies for this redundancy from last. Have you ever read anything by Noam Chomsky, or have you any of his speeches?
Yeah, I've heard a few of his speeches, and I know him just, I don't know, like how other people, I know the people that like him, so that I do know a lot about him just from that angle alone. I've heard his stuff, and not a lot of his earlier work, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. He's basically been saying the same thing the whole time, blaming America for all the problems of the world, very self-loathing, strikes me as like a self-hating Jew. Yeah, he's sort of a kingpin, an intellectual leader of the regressive movement, and I'm quite frankly nauseated by his weakness and think his take on the world is just flawed.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, his self-crit in like nature is something that deters you from taking his views seriously. Is that something?
Yeah, I would say that he's wrapped up in this narrative not because it's true or it aligns with reality, but because it serves him emotionally. And this is a critique I have for many regressives. I think it's more in line with virtue signaling. And there's a kernel of truth in what he says. For example, U.S. foreign policy is not perfect, never has been. Nobody claims it was. But I feel like he's wildly exaggerating the outcome of it. And he has major blind spots. He doesn't attribute any of the problems in the world to the actual people in those regions. And the people that would tell you that it is the people in those regions are the people in the region. They'd be the first to say that. So he's making excuses for everybody, and it's tiresome and repetitive. And I haven't listened to the full body of his work, so maybe I'm missing things, but that's my impression.
And how like a lot of people like looking into and listening to Noam Chomsky like in little increments can get that. However, I turn to Chomsky because also he cynical and very trying to think of the word very pessimistic in how he presents himself. I believe that a lot of regards to criticizing hierarchies and the state tends to be valid, and we just need to get rid of the fluff that he gives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could kind of, there might be some hidden truths and buried in what he's saying. And we do have to keep watch on the powerful. Like, I agree with that sentiment, but when taken to the extreme that regressives do, it just becomes
are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, thought you cut off for a minute. Okay, next question is going to be from Edmund Head Movement Tyson. He wants to know your opinions. Yeah. He wants to know your opinions on homosexuality and incest. He says that he's a Muslim. His family recently immigrated to the UK, and he's had a lot of pushback against traditions like marrying, arranged marriages and cousin marriage. He says that Westerners say this leads to negative outcomes in brain function, but this is a tradition in my family, and I want to know if you. Oh, should he just damn? He's marrying his cousin Shabir? No, he's not. Basically, just wants to know what you think about incest and homosexuality.
Okay, am I taking that right? He has incest in his family?
Yes. Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's a real thing, but I've heard that a lot of Muslims marry their first cousins, and I guess he's kind of talking about that happening in his family, and he's wondering if that's like a cultural thing or if there's like actual shit to that.
Okay. Yeah, this is very easy to decipher. I would be a little bit critical on lumping homosexuality in with incest. They're completely distinct and totally separate and worthy of, separating those two out. But yeah, incest is bad medically. It's also gross, and socially we frown upon it. There's a variety of reasons, historical reasons. It's not just a medical thing. Some of that is subjective, but I still think it's completely valid. And you can get into the exercise of defending why incest is bad. It doesn't harm anybody. It's a victimless crime, all that stuff. And that's interesting on some level, but I would dissuade you from doing it. Yes, it is backward. Yes, it is a tradition in many parts of the Muslim world. Yes, it has adverse effects. So yeah, just don't take part in it. And if you want to criticize the practice, be my guest. I have nothing against it. As far as the gay stuff, you should probably call out the Muslim world for being anti-gay. Recognize that this is a natural thing that happens in the animal kingdom. That truly is a victimless. It's not even a crime. It's just a victimless fact. These dudes are gay. What is it to you? Who cares? Let them be gay. Just cross your fingers. Hope that most of the gays are attractive and feminine lesbians, and then watch videos of them. That's the solution.
Cool. Okay. Next question is going to be. Let's see. It's from. Where is this guy? There it is. Plu. Actually, let's go with the Lord. During this AMA, I've gathered that you're obviously in favor of white people advocating for white interests in their own countries, which of course is a good thing. But aside from that, if the political landscape does not change for the better in Europe, and generally what is perceived as the West. Do you think that political extremism will become far more common within the next few decades, along with seeing a resurgence of ideologies which have long been dead?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment as to what's already happening, because we're not getting solutions. We're not even getting an honest assessment of the problem. It's not even called a problem. The problem is defined as people who are talking about the actual problem. They're the problem, they say. So it's kind of theater of the absurd. And yeah, people are going to scramble. People are going to get fearful. Humans are fearful by nature. And they're going to look for a solution because their leaders aren't going to provide one. It's coming from alternative sources. And the problem, a new problem, is not all those sources are credible. So you're going to get like an Alex Jones or a, whoever far right, Pegida. Maybe Pegida has a major kernel of truth in their opposition to Islam, but maybe some of the dudes in the leadership of that group are questionable and have a bunch of other shit and agenda that is not cool. Who voted for these guys? You see what I'm saying? So people are in a panic and they're looking for answers. And look, as far as promoting white interests,
I'm sorry, you said as far as promoting white interests, and you cut off there. Hello?
it's perfectly legitimate. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say, you said as far as promoting white interests, and then you cut off for a bit.
Oh, I did. Sorry.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, I think it's fine. It doesn't mean that you're against anybody else's interests. You could be in favor of everybody's interests. Normally, a legitimate thing to say is, I'm in favor of America, Americans. I'm doing things to benefit Americans. Oh, really? So you're against Mexico, huh? You're against Madagascar? You're a fucking monster. No. Somebody could have a charity for Mexico, a outreach program. They're building houses in Madagascar.
Uh-oh.
It happened again, just FYI.
Versus white people as a group. I don't want them to be
upset. Out again for a while. He keeps cutting out.
All right, I'm going to refresh. Hold on.
No problem. Okay.
Hello, I'm back. All right, I'm not sure how much I'm repeating myself, so I'll just wrap up on that. I will say that I want someone to be concerned about white people as a group. I don't think it's the end game. I don't think it's the most noble pursuit. I don't think it should matter that much. I'd rather people find commonalities and look for unity as opposed to division. That's the bigger picture. In the same way that I want someone to be working on curing testicular cancer. Not everyone, that's not my goal. I'm not going to be doing it, but I want it to be done. I want someone to be looking for alien life forms, SETI. Sure, throw them a few bucks. You see what I'm saying? It should exist in the landscape, but it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of your life's mission and identity.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Juche. Juche asks, actually it's Vladimir Zaydong here. What are your thoughts on the Chinese acceleration of quantum technologies and achieving more and more? Where do you think in these breakthroughs will the new layer of quantum physics evolve and become a new wave of scientific influence in the 2030s?
Well, I think it's very adorable that he would think that I have an opinion on quantum physics and the breakthroughs coming out of China. That's all news to me. Sadly, I am not up to date with the latest in terms of quantum theory. Usually, quantum is brought up by people who are amateurs who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, who's that woo-woo peddler? Deepak Chopra. The famous physicist once said, if you think you know quantum physics, you don't know quantum physics, something like that. I'm not sure what you're afraid of or what the implications of this are. I'm in favor of scientific inquiry. And I think that there's a world in the quantum, obviously, that is vast, and I can't wait to be illuminated by whatever they discover. It sort of reminds me of us trying to explore outer space, and we're talking about going into different galaxies and solar systems. Meanwhile, we haven't even explored the ocean. So we got to sort of figure out what the hell is happening just around us before we trek off to Mars.
Okay. Now, we've got another question from Shabir, who was that very angry black man earlier. Yeah. He says, are you a hard determinist? If so, do you think blacks should make better choices is a viable solution to the problems they face? Oh, phone call. The problems they face caused by the white man? Or are people victims to their circumstance and can only escape through implementing variables that better their circumstances, i.e., funded education, healthcare, UBI, etc. And then separately, please keep in mind that the Black King was running through the Sahara Desert, fighting off lions, while the white caveman was hiding in underground. Thank you for that, Shabir. Okay, that was his question. Are you there? I think your mic cut off. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm here. Last thing I heard was something about the caveman. What was the caveman doing?
He just wanted to point out, he says that the Black King was running through the Sahara, fighting lions, while the white man was hiding in the cave, basically.
Okay. Yeah, you know what we were doing in those caves? We were fucking Neanderthals and developing larger, more powerful brains. So it was cave time well spent, apparently. Yeah, and the people of Africa wish they had caves. It's a better protection against rain than a grass hut. Yeah, and in terms of what was he talking about? It's been a while since I heard the first part of that question.
Okay, I'll read the first part of it again without his weird Black King stuff. Are you a hard determinist? If so, do you think blacks should make better choices?
Oh yeah, okay.
Is a viable solution to that? Okay.
So yeah, here's the thing with blacks. I guess he's talking about American blacks. Most people usually are. It's very specific. It's a lot of easy scapegoat for American blacks to blame whites for everything. So the problem, the crisis facing the black community in America is not white people. Now, when that will penetrate into their minds it could take a long time because it hasn't yet. Now, I understand the history. I have a degree in history from UCLA. I understand what happened in this country. Back in the day, white people were the problem for blacks. Slavery was the problem, and slavery was instituted by white people. But look, let me give you an update. There was something called the Emancipation Proclamation. It was 155 years ago. White people died by the hundreds of thousands to end slavery. Okay, so you're welcome for that. Since then, I'm not saying it was perfect for blacks. Obviously, there was many generations have to pass for people to get the idea that these people are on level playing ground and should be respected as our brothers and neighbors. Okay, so that is a cultural thing that was always going to take a little time. It's been a long time. Okay, brother, you cannot rely on this piss poor excuse from the past. I understand you're traumatized by it. I understand it's emotionally difficult for you to go through a history book. You feel mad. You feel humiliated. I understand it. I mean, look at a human being. Let's say you have a 10-year-old girl. You rape her. You rape her savagely for the whole year. What do you think she's going to be like when she's 20, 25, 30? Over it? No, she's still fucking concerned about the trauma she experienced when she was 10. This is what's happening in the black community. Now, what does slavery or any of that shit have to do with your single parent rates, your children not being raised right, not doing well in school, and committing crime? I respect black people enough to blame them when they are at fault. If you want to unearth some white police officer who, is excessive and brutalizes a black person, fine, we'll prosecute him. But that is not the problem here. And you know it, and I know it. There's a whole litany of other things that black people can and should be doing for themselves. Take some initiative. Don't this narrative of white people need to save black people or help us or just get out of the way so that the blacks can prosper. It's ignorant and pathetic. You guys have the ability to resurrect your community, improve upon it, and build it up from within. You don't need our permission. We don't give a fuck. And that I say that in a good way. In the same way we don't give a fuck. Okay.
Sorry, I thought you were done. I would just want to add to that question. Wouldn't you say there's white people still blaming white people too? Like you keep saying black people are blaming white people, but there's white people who are on this bandwagon too, right?
Tons, millions. I go after them every day. Anne Hathaway just sent out a tweet. I just did a video on this. It's coming out tomorrow. She sent out a tweet in regards to this 18-year-old black girl who was killed by a white guy in San Francisco. And she's talking about, we have a really deeply racist history, and this is terrible. I'm anti-racist, and this is just another sign of white supremacy. And it makes no sense whatsoever. This guy is arrested. He's going to jail. He's going to go to jail forever for murdering this woman. Nobody's in favor of it. And yet she freaks out and sends this out to millions of people, and they all rally behind it like, yay, it's our fault. It's sad. It's emotions. Emotions are winning the day over rationality.
So speaking of emotions, that very angry black man from earlier, Shabir himself, would like to speak to you. Shabir, you're unmuted.
Okay, thanks. No, what I was referring to specifically was the idea of, so the stuff you mentioned, right? So like the single parent household and like the poverty and whatever, which are all symptoms of the past, I'm sure you'd agree, right? Would you not say that these are all variables that would like lead to like cyclical nature? Like, do you believe in cyclical nature? Do you believe that people are the product of their environment? And if that's the case, how can you say that the statement blacks should make better choices or should take initiative, right, like is viable? This is the whole determinism bit that I was trying to get to.
Well, are you telling me that they're powerless? Of course things happen for a reason. Of course things are cyclical. History will repeat itself. But are you telling me that a child born in poverty cannot escape poverty? A child born to a single mother cannot get married?
I would say there would have to be an external variable that would lead into this, right? So so like nationalism, right, which gets people like up on their feet where they feel like they can actually do something, right? Or I guess yeah, sorry.
No, you're right. They need role models. They need leaders. It's not going to just happen for no reason in a vacuum. In fact, it's going to lead to going into a bad direction, like gang culture. Like if you don't have a role model saying you got to be in school, because you got to get a job because here are the things you got to do as a man in life. Then if that's not there, then they're going to gravitate towards whatever is there, which is a bunch of thugs doing drugs and making money and fucking and getting high. And they're like, well, this seems better than nothing. I'll go with that.
Sure. So you disagree that with the, I guess, like the common phrase of, oh, they should just make better choices. You feel like we should do something.
I understand that the odds are stacked against them because it's a law of physics. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. So if you have a pattern from one family passing it down to the other, whether that be poverty or just being raised in a fucked up way, then that will continue unless it is changed. It has to be altered. But look, I believe in the power of people. I believe you can do this. And I think it's demeaning for white people or anybody to suggest otherwise and to find reasons, outside reasons, and to give excuses. No, I say assess the problem, figure out what is needed, and then rise up and develop your leaders and tell people what's what.
Sure. I mean, to continue with your analogy of like, an object in motion stays in motion, right? If we were to like, I guess like divert or like speed it up or whatever, right? To change it from its like trajectory or it's like I guess like right, you need to include something else, right? So like another force or something, right? So to me, when people say they should just make better choices, it kind of rings to my head that we shouldn't do anything. We shouldn't touch the community. What should happen is they should start making like better choices. And I'm a strong believer in cyclical nature, so I don't think people can just make like decisions outside of their vacuum, right? If they grow up in a drug-affected community with uneducated parents or like a single home, like a household, right? They're gonna grow up to make bad decisions, right? And the only way we can interfere with that cycle is if we introduce a variable that would stop them, right? But for me to believe in that, I don't think they can do it on their own. I would say they need intervention.
Yes, I mean intervention should have come in the form of parenting, but yeah, in lieu of that, somebody else needs to rise up. So it has to be from social media or from YouTube or from, celebrities and sports stars get put in this position just because they're popular and people know of them, and sometimes unwarranted. So, we're going to listen to Kanye West on how to raise the next generation. Yeah, people do that actually, which is bizarre and weird. But these people back their way into being role models. But I'll take it. Yeah, listen to Denzel and Morgan Freeman. Fuck it. I know they're just actors. They don't have some degree in whatever, but I think that you should listen to them, and I think it could be beneficial. And you talk about these cyclical natures. That also works positively. It's not always toward the downward slope. You can create a tradition of positive reinforced things that will benefit each successive generation.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. Shabir, thank you for being civil. Next question is from Jad. Modern atheism can best be described as part of the cult of reductionism, which includes Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. There's no question there. I mean, I guess, do you agree with that?
So, no, I think that was a mess. I think that was, but okay. It's a sentence fragment, basically, but how does atheism is included with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam? That's weird. Like, where's he coming from? I don't get that.
I'm not sure. Jad, are you on here? Yeah, Jad, you're unmuted if you want to clarify this.
Yeah, is it not working?
Yeah, you're unmuted right now. Go for it.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, okay, the original argument is that the anti-theistic type of atheism is along the same line of thinking that originally started with monotheism, reducing the gods of other people to being false or merely appearances of another deity, as well as you see elements such as linear progressive thinking, as well as the idea that all ideals and cultures outside of our framework are false, backwards, or meant to be targeted and destroyed. It's how you describe all of these so-called pagan religions around the world as something that's also backwards and false. You want to destroy their traditions and basically impose your own Western homosexual worshipping values on them. So it's just like, how do you, on one hand, you claim to be neutral and not believing in anything, but you obviously have a certain view, let's say based on human rights, which we could go deeply into how that's really based on Christian ideals of individualism, equality of man, etc. So essentially being a Christian who just denies the existence of Jesus, how do you balance the fact that you're essentially a crusader or ISIS-like in your views with the fact that you try to be nice on YouTube so that the Jewish people give you advertisements or whatever?
Okay. That's amazing. Thank you. That just made my day. God, that was rife with some problems. Okay, well, for starters, what you're trying to do is equate atheists to being the worst. You just compared me to ISIS and to the monotheistic religions of the past.
You have a similar viewpoint.
Yeah, this is a classic attempt by people. They try to say atheism is a religion too. You have faith in atheism. It's a sad attempt to it's a false equivalence is what you're trying to do. Just because I am against religions doesn't mean I'm like the religious who also were against other religions. Hold on, you caught me red-handed. I'm against something and someone else is against something. Well, I must be exactly like them. I mean, no,
I
that's
pointed
false.
out other similarities as well.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
your
well,
idea
I'll
that
address
history
them.
moves. Okay.
I'll address
mute
them.
myself until then.
Okay, so here's a major difference between me and the monotheistic religions of the past who rejected all the other gods. I don't believe in God. I'm not telling you that your God is false, but my God is real. I'm saying all of these claims are bogus. Also, I'm not totalitarian. I'm not saying this is the way it must be. Every atheist who is honest will admit that they're agnostic. We don't have full knowledge. We are open to new evidence. It's just we are 99.999% sure because there's a complete lack of evidence. So I'm open to the scientific method. I'm open to hear new things. This is a major difference between me and somebody who's religious. Your desperate attempt to equate me to someone who's religious shows that you're uncomfortable with my message because deep down, underlying, you probably know it's true. And I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry you're going to die. Sorry everyone you love is going to die, but don't blame me. You're blaming the messenger.
That has nothing to do with it. We'll view religion as essentially taking certain practices and putting them in the sacred realm so they can't be argued with, more like sacred law. So it's just something like weapons worship, which requires you to use these things in battle to defend your tribe. When you go along and say atheism, this, that, to us, it's basically saying you should disarm yourself so an adversary can nuke you to oblivion. So we put you, if you're not strengthening our tribe, you're weakening it. And I guess you're a pacifist anyway, so there's no real argument to be had between us.
Well,
but
as far
you're
as
doing
this,
good work. you seem like a nice enough person, so I don't have much else to say or anything against you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to coexist with people. I mean, it's just, you do your thing, I do my thing, just don't harm people. That's basically what it comes down to. And then I will have the intellectual argument and try to convince people that the way I view it as right, because that's what I honestly think. As far as me, being raised in a Christian nation with a Christian history, and therefore all of my principles and beliefs are Christian, I mean, that's, again, the genetic fallacy. But the Christians love to act like, they have this huge list, like the 10 Commandments. I mean, as if 8 of the 10 Commandments aren't completely horseshit, or, totally, not legitimate. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not rape, steal. Come on. You're really gonna...
that's all the fun stuff. No, if you're
Right,
willing to coexist, that's fine.
Yeah,
I
but
don't really
you
have
realize
a
that
problem.
other cultures figured this out, so it's not some unique thing to Christianity. And I don't deny the
I'm
fact
not a
that I came from
Christian,
a Christian. Okay, well, what are you?
I'm a Sikh.
Ah, well, then we have no problem. The Sikhs in, I thought it was Sikh.
No, it's Sikh.
Oh, Jesus. The Sikhs over in Britain, they get along with the Christians and the atheists. So I have no problem, and peace be upon you.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, too.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Next question is from Eggs. Eggs, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Again, my mic is like awful, so I'm sorry if it's like hard to understand.
No problem.
Okay. So my question is based off of what you said earlier. You said to that guy who was like, oh, fuck white people, they're inferior or whatever. You said to him that he should spend his life with black people, but then you denounced white ethnostates. So I just want to clarify, are you like against white ethnostates and you're fine with other races having their own ethnostates?
I'm fine with Wakanda. No, I would have criticism of that, but simply telling a guy who hates white people and loves black people to spend his life with blacks is just a good piece of advice. I mean, I'm not in favor of a state that excludes people based on race.
No, I know. I'm just saying that you were saying that white ethnostates are bad, and then you're saying that this guy should live with black people.
Yeah, I disagree. Well, it was being facetious, and living with black people doesn't mean you live in a nation that is an ethnostate. You could live in a community of black people. This is what happens, by the way, all the time. They call it voluntary racial segregation, if you want to be fancy with it. But yeah, I mean, look, my family comes from South Africa, and they call that the Rainbow Nation. The idea was that they could, after Nelson Mandela, find peace, find harmony, live together. Now, obviously, that has not worked out, and we shouldn't be surprised. Any student of history should not be surprised that two people who are radically different, especially based on biology and culture, would not be able to coexist. So it is an ideal, but it is difficult to achieve. And varying nations have had varying degrees of success with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So weird that girls are online. It's such a rare thing. It's like seeing a friggin' unicorn.
Oh my God. Okay, next question is from Rassen. Rassen, you are unmuted. Well, I mean, you're a mod, so you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my brother. I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the state of Israel and Judaism, be it Jews as in religion or culture or whatever? That's my first question. Number 2 is I've read a study on Pew about atheism and birth rates, and it seems that atheists have compared to the religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, have the lowest birth rates amongst all of them. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think the atheist population will stagnate and people like you will die off, or do you think that there will be a resurgence in the birth rates?
Okay, good question. I appreciate that. And I will answer it. Maybe I'll answer it in reverse. As far as atheism and birth rates, yeah, that's true. Those are the facts. I'm an atheist. I have no children. Also, I think there's a correlation. The more intelligent you are, the less likely it is that you're going to have kids. And if you do have kids, it'll be later in life. So that's tied directly to IQ. But yeah, evolutionarily, traditionally, pumping out kids was good because that just meant that your DNA propagated and continued. that's very animalistic. It's a very weird goal to be like, I gotta produce more of me because I have this one idea, and the only way my idea move on is if I churn out a kid and brainwash him with the idea. Now that's retarded. Ideas are more powerful than semen. Quote me on it. Ideas travel, they spread. So do memes, especially with the internet. The internet has churned that phenomenon up by 1,000-fold. So atheism is going to spread no matter what, no matter how many kids atheists have. So that's what I'd say to that. As far as your Jewish question, the JQ, I am widely known for being absolutely a huge fan of Jewish people. Personally, I've had just nothing but positive encounters with Jews. I value them. I'm aware of their contribution to global culture, to technological advancements, to culture, to making me laugh. I have a huge debt to Jews. I love Israel. I'm going to visit Israel next year for Eurovision. I defend Israel in their constant crusade against the savage, genocidal freaks and maniacs, the Palestinians. I support them wholeheartedly. I've made multiple videos on it. Yeah, the Jews are frigging fantastic. Gal Gadot, Natalie Portman. What else do I need to say? I love the Jews. I find the Jew hatred to be one of the most insidious cancers ever to be seen on this earth. And the fact that it's resurgent today online is nauseating to me. I'm a huge fan of, every place I go visit Holocaust memorials in Berlin, in Budapest. In Melbourne. I was living in the Jewish community in Melbourne. I have nothing but glowing reviews to say about them. I am a fan of the fact that they're irreligious, that they've outsmarted religion, and yet they maintain their cultural identity and their traditions. That's fine. Big fan of the Jews. I couldn't be more clear. Hooray for Jews.
How are they irreligious if they are using a theological justification? That is to say, the Torah as the justification for them to have their own state.
Okay, well, yeah, obviously the caveat is I have problems with and criticisms of Hasidic Jews, Orthodox Jews, and I don't agree with the divine claim to having a homeland. Having said that, I think they have a completely incredible claim, historically speaking, to have a nation. And I mean, if you want to start splitting hairs on who has the right to own a nation, and you think Israel is some outlier, every nation has a dubious claim to why they have the right to be a nation. You think America came by and said, this is ours because it's ours, fuck you, eat this cannonball. So I'm aware of that, and I'm not going to pretend like that's not the case in every nation on earth.
Okay, so might makes right in that sense.
Might makes right? Yeah, are you familiar with reality? I mean, look, you could break it down by international law, and how nations are formed. Israel was formed when? In the aftermath of World War II. Right, aftermath of World War II. Do you know how many nations were formed then and have changed since then? I mean, do you have an issue with any of those nations? Where do you stand on Croatia? I mean, it's like...
I have some issue, yes. Like Nigeria. So
this is not uncommon. There are people in every region on this earth who have a problem with the borders and why this nation is this nation. The people of India have this problem. The people in Spain, Catalonia, everybody has a gripe, but you gotta just accept that, look, you could try write an angry email to, the Prime Minister of Israel and see if that's going to work. Otherwise, bring an army. And the Arabs and the Muslims have brought armies, and it's not going to work. Israel has the backing of America, and they're our ally, and if you have a beef, then you're going to get fucked.
Do you think it will come to a state where America will stop supporting Israel?
Oh, definitely not. Especially not with Trump in power. In fact, if anything, with him trying to saber rattle with Iran, we could have major problems in the immediate future. I was just watching a documentary about Robert Kennedy, RFK, who was shot in California in the 60s, and he was killed by a Palestinian, Sirhan. And he did it because he had heard that Robert Kennedy was going to fund militarily Israel. And he was pissed because it was just after the 67 war. And he was like, I feel this is my responsibility to my people. And he assassinated the guy. Now he regrets it, and he's trying to make the case that he wished he could take it back. But look, Robert Kennedy or not, Nixon, whoever's in office, they're going to support Israel. That ain't going away. And even if we didn't support them, they have a military power and strength to defend themselves. Highly competent people. They're also the smartest people on the planet. You shouldn't be surprised.
Cool.
I feel as if most of the success is primarily propped up by U.S. protection.
It helps, but look, they've built a thriving first world nation in a desert, with limited natural resources and with a lot of antagonism. So I think that they have a pretty good record, and they should be commended for it. I don't see why people want to make Jews their enemy. Befriend them, work with them. They seek peace. Their aggression is done to secure their borders and to play defense. I mean, they're not looking to acquire new lands. They just want to live their lives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next question is, oh God, Rassen. Okay, it's from No True Scotsman. He wants to ask it directly. I'm unmuting you now, and go.
Hello?
Yeah, go for it. Already.
I don't remember which question it was. I had like 3 of them.
Ask a couple.
Oh, okay. Are most of these progressives who like currently try to defend, I guess, socialism and communism guilty of the No True Scotsman fallacy?
Interesting. Yeah, that's always abounds. You see that all the time. I don't think defending socialism is far less of a problem. If somebody's trying to defend communism, that's time to go into panic mode. But yeah, I think it's a problem with words. I think it's a little bit of semantics. So if somebody says socialism, it's not actually a socialist. Like people called Bernie Sanders a socialist. If some guy straight up goes, no, I'm a communist, like legit old school, like communist, then at least you can talk in a sensible way instead of talking past each other. Because it feels to me like 80% of most conversations get bogged down in people don't understand each other. Literally, the words they use are not being comprehended as they were intended. And I think that's the case. But yeah, No True Scotsman is one of the typical devices that people fall back into and should be called out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty simple.
Beautiful.
I like. Well, there was another question, Mr. No True Scotsman. I don't know why you didn't ask that one, but I'll ask it for you. Another question that you had was, is homosexual attraction an evolutionary dead end in terms of natural selection?
Yeah. No, because it crops up. Gays are not made by gay people. Gays are made by straight people. And people seem to be fascinated with this evolution and, demographics, and we got to breed, and we're kind of past that in many ways. I mean, we have enough human beings. All right, we're not animals on the animal cycle. We got to churn out kids the second we can. But as far as gays, you need to spend your life not worrying about gays. They're not a threat to you. They're not going to take over the world. They're going to, listen to musical theater and be fabulous.
Cool. Next question is from let's see. Let's go with Wolf Mercy. Wolf, you didn't respond to whether or not you wanted to ask in voice chat, but I'm sure you do. So you are unmuted.
I'm unmuted right now?
Yeah, you're unmuted right now.
All right, thanks. Well, first of all, I actually just joined, so if there's anybody who's been waiting for a long time, I'm sorry. But yeah, just out of respect, I'd like to just first start by asking if you're okay with me streaming this. I'm actually a live streamer. I stream in here quite frequently and record. Would that be okay? Can I hit the button?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh God, I look like shit. All right, whatever. I'm turning it on. So yeah, I've actually never heard of your YouTube channel before. Similarly to the guy who was in here yesterday, but I had a quick look, and it's very interesting because this is actually a topic that's really dear to my heart. I'd first like to ask you, like, so let me get this straight. You don't. What did I ask here? You truly believe that there is no God?
Yeah, I don't think there's a God.
So that's atheism. So it's not agnostic. Like you don't believe that, well, I'm just one man. How could I possibly know? You believe you have a strict disbelief in God.
Yeah, agnosticism is on a spectrum. So I am agnostic technically, but I am not uncertain. I am as certain as I am of anything that I know to be true, that there is no God, because there's no evidence of it. So it's not a disbelief. I mean, I could make the argument, and for the sake of it, I could tell you that there is no God. But
yeah, and I could tell you the opposite, and I could tell you everything that you just said. I could, without a doubt, stand here, even face to face, and tell you that you're wrong, and it's the opposite, in fact. And there is so much evidence for God. It's overwhelming, as a matter of fact. Number one, number two, being the way I see it, being agnostic are people who are semi-intelligent. They believe, okay, I don't know if there's a God. I've never seen him with my own eyes, but there could be. How could I ever know? It's impossible to ever know. Being atheist is foolish, because that atheism is a strict disbelief in God, and that means that you have come to a conclusion in your life that has led you to believe that there is no God, and that's just plain and simply, that's just foolish. When I was a kid, I'll tell you a little story real quick. When I was a kid, I was an atheist for a little while, not very long, but when I was born, I was kind of agnostic. Then all of a sudden, I went to public school, and one of my teachers, literally one day, I respected him so much. I believe he was my art teacher, and he says to me one day, I says to him, "So, do you believe in God?" And I respected this man so much, and he looked me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Quit believing in that shit, kid." He said, "It ain't. Keep in mind, I'm in junior high or high school when this early years." And when he said this to me, he goes, "Quit believing in that shit, kid. It's all bullshit. It's a lie." And I was devastated by this. And those words kind of rang around in my head like a bell. There's construction going on outside. Those words kind of rang around in my head like a bell, and they really kind of poisoned my mind for a little while. And keep in mind, like I'm a young man, and this man in authority is telling me this, and it just really stuck with me and bothered me throughout life. And even for a little bit while, I did disbelieve in God. And the reason being was because of all the horrible, horrible things that I had witnessed and been through in my life. I blamed God. I said, "Why? If God is real and it really is all powerful and almighty, how could he ever let these horrible things happen to me?" And the answer to that is simple. First of all, the greatest gift God ever gave to man was freedom of will. Okay, so now that we got that get past that. Second of all, this world, okay, it's real, I will admit, but it's as real as we will ever know as long as we're here. But if you've ever seen like maybe Avatar or The Matrix, it doesn't necessarily mean what I know 100% is real is my consciousness, your consciousness. I'm a person, you're a person, we have personality. We can get past that. That is real. We are experiencing this realm, but other than that, there is absolutely no evidence that any of this is real. How do we know it's not simulated reality? We don't. And I truly believe in my heart and mind that this is simulated reality, and it's all a test to see whether or not we are worthy of the kingdom of heaven. And at the end, you will either pass the test and you get to live in the real world with God and everyone else, or you fail the simulated reality. You fail the test. And you know where you're going? Nowhere. You stay in the simulated reality and they send you to hell. And that's it. You stay there for eternity. Just like it says in the books and all these different religions. So as far as like these horrible things that happen and putting blame, why did that happen? Why would God let that happen? He didn't let that happen. It's people doing it to other people. People who are in the simulated reality, in the test, they're doing horrible things to each other. It has nothing to do with God. He's just witnessing it, just watching, saying, okay, you're going to pay for that fucker in the end. And that's essentially what I believe. So other than that, I mean, there's really not much else to say.
Well, you seem to be satisfied with that, and that is quite a lot that you did just say, and I disagree wholeheartedly and think you're very profoundly confused. You did mention one thing that was interesting. I would like to ask you about it. You said that when that teacher told you that it's all bullshit and there's no God, you said you were devastated. Why were you devastated by that?
Because I was on the fence. On one hand, I wanted, I heard that I was a kid. I heard the stories. I was skeptical. I didn't understand fully. And then on the other hand, I believe, maybe there is a God. I felt in my life this peace. Even as a kid, I felt that the good things that had happened in my life were just astonishing, and that I had even as a child, when I went on vacations and I saw these spectacles of the world, standing on top of a mountain, looking out through other mountains in the wilderness on a beautiful day with no clouds. Oh, it's awe-inspiring. And I said to myself, okay, maybe there is a creator. This is incredible, this world. But then the bad things happen, and you think, oh, how could God let this happen?
Okay, but wait a minute. The mountains and the sky and the beauty of the world, that's real, that exists, whether there is a God or not, right?
Well, like I said, it's as real as we'll ever know while we're here,
Okay,
while we're
okay.
stuck in the simulation.
Let's put the simulation argument
in a sense, but
let's put the simulation argument aside for a second. I want to get back to, you said you were devastated that you found out there wasn't a God, which to me says that you have a preference. Why didn't you take that information as just neutral? Like, oh, turns out there is no God. Okay, well, I'll go along with that.
Because imagine if your own, it was like as a child, my father was never really around, and men, if you actually want to get into the science of it, when men are young, when you're a young man, especially if you have, I'll even say daddy issues. I didn't really, but let's just pretend you're a young man, you have daddy issues. Your dad walked out on you when you were young. That's not the case for me. My mom and dad were actually never really together, so that's why he wasn't really around. It was kind of like a one-night stand thing. But when you're a child, let's pretend you have daddy issues. Daddy walked out on you when you're a kid, and this other man who's in a position of authority, your favorite teacher in high school, you look up to this person, and they almost assume the position of father. And so I never knew what his religious stance was. But I respected him so much that when he told me, and I was not, like I said, I was on the fence that he didn't believe in God. And it's not, like I said earlier about being agnostic, you cannot possibly ever say factually that there is no God, because there is absolutely no way of knowing for sure.
That's not how knowledge works. But yeah, okay.
I was already on the fence.
No, but why are you devastated? You're admitting that you want there to be a God. Do you want there to be a God?
Absolutely. What do you mean? No, there is no want. I know now. I'm a grown man now, I'm 21. I know now without a doubt, there is a God. Okay. But back then, yes, I did want there to be a God when I didn't know. I was a child.
So you want there to be a God, and therefore you're biased, and you're only going to listen to the evidence you want to hear.
There is no want there. I was a child. Okay, listen.
No, there's a want. You just said
I was a child then. I'm a grown man now.
Yeah.
Then I did not understand the full complexities of God in this spiritual realm we're in, or any of these things, and it's impossible to ever. But I was on the fence, and that's why it devastated me. And there is no, I found out there was no God, and there is no, just because this man told me, I had heard that before in my life. This wasn't the first time I ever heard someone say there was no God, but it was the first time a man that I respected and looked up to said it, and that's why it devastated me.
But I'm not even talking about whether there is a God or not. I'm talking about your want for there to be a God.
No, you're saying because you say things like when you found out there was no God. That's why I have to say that.
No. I'm saying, I'm trying to get you to understand that you want there to be a God. I'll put it in a different frame of mind here.
No, I'm telling you, I used to want there to be a God. But now I know for a fact, just as like you.
Hey, Wolf, hold on, Wolf. Stop interrupting.
Okay, you're not. I don't care if you know that there's a God now. You still want there to be a God now, correct?
Well, let's pretend that for a second that God was a human being. He was like me. He could be killed. He could be hurt. I felt pain before. Let's say he could be killed, and he was alive, and he was somewhere on Earth walking around. I would want, and all the stories were true. He's all powerful. He's all knowing, but he's mortal. He can be killed. I would want that person to live. So to answer your question, yes, I want there to, I guess, just to throw you extend an olive branch here, yes, okay, I'll just pretend I do want there to be a God, but
why do you want
that? I know it. I'm just trying to extend an olive branch here. Okay, yes, I do want there to be a God, period.
I'm not talking about knowledge. I'm asking why. Why do you want? What benefit is it to you that there is a God? Why does that make you happy?
Because it gives my life purpose. The fact that I understand that this isn't real. It's all just a test to see if I'm worthy of the kingdom of heaven or not. It gives my life purpose.
Now here's
and I
the
know
second
that
question.
God is watching it all at all times.
I've got a second question for you. Do you want to live forever?
No, not in this world.
Okay, but do you want your consciousness to continue to exist after your immortal death?
Well, see, that's the thing. I believe in reincarnation too. So you go up to heaven for a little while, and you're chilling with God. You're fucking playing pool, and you're fucking, you're dancing and eating Cheetos, and then God says, "Hey, you want to go back? You want me to? You want to do another test? Send you back into the simulated reality? You want to go another round?" And I say, "Yeah, sure." And here I am.
You want reincarnation to be real?
Oh no, I know reincarnation is real.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking, do you want it to be real?
Well, see, if I asked you if you want a Lamborghini, the answer is yes, I want a Lamborghini, or no. And like, there is no. If I asked you, are Lamborghinis real, and you said, oh well, like you're asking me questions that I already know the answer to,
listen,
and you're trying
you're
to
merging. You're
what you're
merging
doing right
two
now.
things.
Listen, let me say one thing. What you're doing right now is called. You should actually watch The Matrix, because when Neo walks into the room with the architect, he does the exact same thing that you're trying to do to me now. It's called reverse psychology. You're taking my perfectly logical, insane thinking, and you're trying to flip it on its head with manipulation and backwards tactics, and you're trying to convince me that you're trying to confuse me essentially, and convince me that what I know is not real.
No, you're just confused, period. No, you're not. These are very simple questions. They're not even trick questions. I'm trying to expose to you that you have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, but I can see where you're going with them. This isn't my first rodeo. I've met so many people like you that use reverse psychology bullshit. Neo even says it himself.
So I just want you to acknowledge that it is in your interest for there to be a God and for you to live forever. These are the things you want. You want reincarnation, you want God to exist, and coincidentally, you happen to believe that that's all true.
I don't really want to live forever in the sense that you're trying to portray me to. I just don't want to go to hell. Let me put it that way. I want to pass the test every single time, every round. I keep going back up to the good place, and I don't be a piece of shit in my life, and I'm not going to hell.
Dude, there is no hell. I mean, this is all madness. You're wasting your time with this. You could do more productive things.
Things like they're facts, but you don't know for sure, and you could never know. That's why you're the confused one, and not me.
An appeal to ignorance.
I admit that I don't know for sure that there's hell or heaven or God. You cannot.
So
that is the difference between me and you.
Does the number 99.999%? How sure are you that you're a man? What percentage is that?
A man? Well, I got a dick.
Okay, but are you sure you have a dick? Maybe it's a simulation.
I piss out of it every day.
Maybe it's a simulation. Maybe you're a hermaphrodite. You have a pussy somewhere up in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so you're not totally sure that you're a man. Therefore what? Therefore you're a unicorn?
I'm totally sure of one thing. Just like I'll bring it back to what I said earlier, my consciousness, and that I'm experiencing this. Everything else is up for speculation and up for debate. This, like I said, I truly believe that this world is not it. We're not just like deer or cattle running around. You shoot them and boom, they're dead. That's it, gone. No, dude, that's not what I believe. I believe humans are special, and that this world, this spiritual realm, is set up for us as a test to see whether or not we're worthy of the kingdom of heaven. Have you ever seen The Matrix?
Well,
have you seen it?
Yeah. You weren't even born when it came out. Yes, I've seen The Matrix.
I wasn't born when it came.
You're a grown man. You're a grown man now, so you have all your answers. My question is, why do you care? Why are you here talking to me? You know all this. You figured it all out, man. So are you trying to save me? Are you trying to prevent me from going to hell? Are you performing charity right now?
Oh, he just left the voice channel.
I mean, that guy is either a troll, he's either a method actor, or he's autistic. If he does have daddy issues, he's just completely clueless. But I was trying to convey a simple point to him, but you could see he got all defensive and didn't even understand what I was saying. But it's not surprising. If you can't understand what I'm saying, what chance does he have of figuring out the universe? None. Doesn't understand.
He's not a troll, unfortunately.
All right, well,
he actually believes that.
It's an appeal to ignorance. It's one fallacy after another. And it's embarrassing. I mean, honestly, but we coexist with these people. That dude's a voter. That's scary shit. Of course, I'm not going to waste my time with that because, time is limited. And you want me to do damage control on this guy? You're not going to go in there with a scalpel. That guy needs a wrecking ball to rethink all of this from the ground up.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to something more productive.
Right.
Our next question is going to be from Lone Wonder. What do you think about Brexit?
don't care really. I mean, it might affect me as I'm a British citizen living in Europe, and so I'm hoping that they don't stupidly pass some restrictions on my ability to travel and live in Europe. Aside of that, it's boring. Who is excited about trade and tariffs? And I mean, culturally, it's more interesting. This idea, it's the remnants of the British Empire and their feeling that they're superior to everyone else. It's the reason that they didn't go on the euro. They never fully went in because they're like, no, we're Britain. We're better than you. Fuck you. Having said that, it was 50-50. And the day after Brexit vote, people were like, wait, what is Brexit again? That was the number one trending thing on Google was, what does it mean that we just Brexited? So I think that it could be attributed to the fact that the word Brexit is catchy and is a phrase. Whereas the Remain people, the state people, they didn't have anything like that. It was marketing. And if you don't think that that made a difference in a 50-50 vote, you're crazy. I hope that smart heads prevail and that they figure out a way to, yes, be concerned about immigration and being controlled, to have Britain controlled by the voting bloc within Europe. I think they should have some autonomy, but there's got to be a way to work around this. That being said, I don't study this. I don't read articles about Brexit. I could give a fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, next question is from Mo. Mo, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is this was a while back. I think I first joined when this question was asked, but this is in response to your reply to the is Islam worse than fundies in the US? I may be incorrect, but it sounds like you're against Islam more than Christianity, which I feel is very disingenuous. I would disagree with that notion, and that extremist Muslims are more a product of their unhealthy environments, and that Muslims usually live in worse countries than Christians. My question is, do you like Islam as a religion, just a religion, without the people, more than Christianity? Also, I'm an ex-Muslim atheist, if that matters.
No, yeah, I would take issue with what you just said. I am not a fan of Islam. And if I'm going to rank the religions, even though I'm an anti-theist and not really a big fan of either one, I am still aware, I'm not blind, and I'm aware of the tenets of both religions. And I could say objectively Islam is worse. And it doesn't even matter on paper. Obviously, there are bad parts in the Bible and whatnot, but the prevailing message of Christianity being love thy neighbor and whatnot, especially Jesus was a hippie.
Same thing as in Islam too, though. Like, are you familiar with the Quran at all? Like, have you read it?
Yes. No, I've not read the Quran. But Muhammad was not a love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek hippie. He was a beheader and a pedophile and a rapist and a warlord. And so obviously the teachings of these two men are going to be wildly different. And so while I'm not a fan of either, I can still recognize that, hey, there's a little good sentence here in the Quran and here's a nice part of the Bible. But that doesn't matter. What matters more than that is how is it playing out in the real world? So how does a fundamentalist Christian act? How does a fundamentalist Muslim act? If you want to go by
Sorry, go ahead.
If you want to go by terrorist attacks alone, you could crunch those numbers and there's your answer. It's not even close. There's more violence, more mayhem coming out of the extremist world within Islam than coming from the Christian world. But again, what's the point of that? It's like, it's not a big win to say that the Christians are not as bad as the Muslims. It's like, okay, I don't want any of the bad stuff.
I here's my I don't necessarily disagree in that Islam produces more extremist terrorists and things like that. Like, obviously it's really easy to look it up, but my argument, or what I take issue with, is that these people usually come from really terrible countries from initially, from the get-go, versus
yes, but
Christians usually come from the West. So
yeah, but these are why these countries are terrible and why they're good. This has a lot to do with it. I mean, half the stuff that Muslims do, it's not just that they happen to be Muslim. It's possible for a Muslim to do something bad and it has nothing to do with Islam. It's not a statement about Islam. But the 9/11 hijackers, they were doing that for Islam.
Are you familiar with Iran's history before Islam became a majority religion in that country?
Whose history?
Iran, or Iran,
okay.
I guess.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Iran, right?
Yeah, sorry,
okay,
I'm using the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, you're talking about way back before the Muslims invaded.
So basically, as soon as if you're not really too familiar with it, like it's kind of difficult for me to like. It's basically like from
what's your point,
1925, 1940. My point is that Islam didn't necessarily make Iran a bad country. It was just the Middle East.
Well, okay, you have to describe what you mean by bad. Like when Iran was more secular, I would say it was better for more people. Like women, for example, had more rights and freedoms, and would probably say that they had a higher level of happiness. So yeah, that's fine. But Islam is still not off the hook. For example, honor killings. Honor killings is condoned by the Quran. Like this is what they are taught. Their outlook on how they view Jews, gays, how they view criticism, how they view people who leave the faith. These are ideas that are fundamental to the religion.
But these are all things that like they came from Christianity too, though, in history. Like I'm not
okay,
wrong
okay,
about
but
that, am I?
okay, so now you actually want to do a comparison of how gays and women are treated in the Christian world versus the Muslim world? And what is the end result of this? I'm not a Christian. I'm not going to sit here and cheerlead if you find me some homophobic Christian. There are many, but it's definitely they're not being thrown off the tops of buildings.
I guess my end goal here is just like to establish that we like all religions are like basically the same, because and you should disagree with them.
I do. I'm an anti-theist, but no. I fundamentally think they're all false equally, but the way that they're implemented and the way they're people that follow those religions act out and behave in the real world is wildly different. There is no Christian ISIS.
I mean, there was though the KKK.
That's definitely not. See, you're desperate to find some sort of.
I'm
you
not
want to throw
desperate,
dirt
dude.
at
I
the
can
other
Google
side.
these things. Like there have
Yeah,
been
but the KKK is
in the past.
Yes, the KKK is nowhere near ISIS. ISIS kills more people in a day than the KKK killed in 10 years. KKK is a nothing entity, and what they did was not in the name of Christianity. And it's impossible.
To compare the number of murders they've done is like pretty anachronistic, don't you think? Like you're comparing the KKK like way back when they had power versus to ISIS, who like has like much better weapons and things like that.
No, well, first of all, ISIS used swords half the time and knives to behead people. And by the way, if ISIS had more power, if they had nukes and whatnot, we'd be in a lot of trouble. That's a big concern. But no, the KKK is bad, but they're nowhere near. And first of all, they're nowhere near as religious. And to claim that the KKK is some logical extension of Christian belief is retarded.
Right. I'm just saying the KKK because that's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, I'm not really well versed in how many Christian terrorists there were historically, but like, I'm sure Google would be like more than happy to provide me with plenty of them.
Oh,
like,
yeah. It would be a list of confirmation bias, and the numbers wouldn't stack up. You can talk about dudes who bomb abortion clinics, and it's happened 10 times in the history of our country.
I'm just trying to make the point that you can't really compare the numbers because like Christianity was at its worst like a couple centuries ago when weapons weren't as good and human populations just weren't as big, versus now Islam has like guns and stuff, and we're like talking about nuclear weapons, and there are definitely more people to kill.
Okay, so yeah, Christianity was bad back in the day, but again, you're speaking as if this is relevant or something when it's not. I understand what you're doing. I'll explain to you what you're doing. Your name is Mo, which is short for Muhammad. You come from a Muslim background. These are your people, and you feel like you are being insulted and disgraced.
Okay. Like real quickly, like I don't want you to like. I'm not sorry. Like I keep interrupting, but I don't want to like. I don't want you to strawman me. Like I used to like when I was an edgy teenager. I like hated everybody, and I wanted like all Muslims to die. Okay, so I'm not like that anymore. Like this is like more of me recovering from that. So yeah,
Good.
like just to make that clear.
I understand you're on a path, but you still take offense because your parents are Muslim, your cousins, your grandparents. Your history, it's all these people. And for us to be constantly shitting on them, you take it as like, why are you being negative? Why are you dogging us out? What's up with that? And so your instinct is to lash back and be like, yeah, well, the KKK, they were Christian. And yeah, what about 500 years ago when the Christians were doing bad shit, burning witches? Like, you're talking to a guy, first of all,
I'm not injecting my personal feelings into this. Like, if that's what you think, then
but this is why. But this is why the conversation is even existing. It's so random. I am not a Christian. I'm not telling you that Christians can do no wrong and have never done anything wrong. I'm not a representative of Christianity. And so when you sit there and say, here's what I want to talk about. Muslims, yeah, we have our problems, but also the Christian. Like, it's so random. Why would you frame a discussion based off that? Where do you think that gets you?
Because like, okay, because then that means that you have to treat Muslims in a like more substandard way than you would treat Christians. Like that's essentially what you would get from your argument. Do you disagree?
No, I don't treat them in a substandard way. I'm concerned. I'm aware of the threat they pose based off the facts. You know, there are differences. There are real world differences, and to try to muddy the waters by bringing up the past is just, that is a desperate tactic. It's irrelevant. What is happening today? Who is doing the killing? Who is posing a problem? You know,
You really don't think that the fundamentalist Christians in like the U.S. and Europe, like that, they wouldn't like go batshit insane like the Muslims would in their countries? Like, you really think that's a thing?
I think the fundamentalist Christians are flawed and kind of a joke, but as in terms of how they're going to affect my life, it's nowhere near. I mean, look, the Christianity has been tamed. It has been beaten down, and they are the butt of a joke. They do not control society. You know, we have our checks and balances. We live in a secular world, and they do their own thing. And there are pockets where they all dork out, and it's crazy, man. These people are crazy, Mormons and whatnot, but they're not harming other people. They're intellectually just as lost and clueless. I grant you that. But the real world effects of that, it's just not the same. And I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm against both, but they're not the same.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Mr. Rassen again. Rassen, you are unmuted.
You say Christianity has been tamed and beaten down, but at the same time, you're supporting liberal values. This is a modernistic heresy. Now, why are you afraid of Islam?
I think it's a hideous death cult that is cancerous in nature and does incredible harm and is backward and counterproductive to the advancement of my species.
So what do you okay?
What do I propose?
What do you propose as an alternative to Islam?
Anything. I would take anything, but I would say secular humanism.
No, that won't work. It is like trying to use a dildo against a mighty Arabic sword. It will not. The Islamic zealous is much more stronger than the Western zealousy for secular humanism. This is why Islam will conquer the West, because we're not strong enough. We don't have the exact zeal that can match Islam.
So, okay, fine. Secular humanism plus the U.S. military. How about that?
That's what we're doing today, and it's not been very effective, at least for Europe. In America, it's not a problem because you have geographical advantage. In Europe, they're still upholding secular liberal values, but at the same time, they're still maintaining open borders for their countries, and you have these Islamic people raping their women and such.
They need to change that. They need to stiffen up and get a clue and push back. And well, it's changing. I mean, the tide is turning. So
the nationalistic parties you're talking about, they still have the same ideological grounding as their supposed so-called opposing liberal parties. It will not work in the long term because you have already destroyed the moral foundation of your society by rejecting Christian kings and Christian religion.
Okay. Well,
Islam will conquer if this keeps up. We have to return back.
I agree that Islam will conquer unless it's confronted, unless people recognize it for what it is and rally against it. I agree with that. But look at the German political landscape. I mean, look at the Alternative for Germany, AFD, and the numbers of support they are getting. And that's a single issue party. They're like, look, and you can make change. You can change your immigration. You can say Germany is not the home of Islam. Islam is not part of German culture, and we are against it, and here are our reasons. I think that's a completely valid thing to say. And yes, there is an influx of Muslims because their countries are all shit, and they recognize it, and they know that they can have better lives for their families and exploit the system of Western democracies. But, that's what's happening right now. But I am in favor of rebelling against that and stopping it in its tracks. Unless they want to play ball, unless they want to de-emphasize the radical aspects of the religion, and if it's a bunch of Majid Nawazes, then fine, be my guest, come in. I'll still laugh at you and say that you're wrong, but I'll live with you and coexist.
Okay. Rastin, thank you for that. Normal man, I promise you'd go next, but I lied to you because I'd like Lee to go now. He sounds more interesting, TBH. Lee, you are on mute.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hi.
You said that, we've left our country for a better life here.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you condemn all the war crimes that America has done in my country, Afghanistan? That's where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first question. And yeah, so that's the first question. Do you condemn?
I condemn any war crime. My issue would probably be what you're defining as a war crime. Do you condemn the Taliban?
Yeah, I'm against every group that. I'm not for any group.
So you harboring Al Qaeda and whatnot? Do you think that was a problem, or do you think it was totally unjustified us going into Afghanistan?
I believe that the West has created these groups for, to destabilize the Middle East.
You think the
which
West
is why
created
we
Al Qaeda?
have. I would say the reason they were created.
Oh, okay.
Is because of the West.
It wasn't some conspiracy. We didn't actually make the group, but we are the
No,
reason.
I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy. I would say that's how they came about.
So do you think it was justified, the 9/11 attacks? You understand? You sympathize with what they were doing?
I would say that no. Of course, whoever has done this act is obviously not a good thing, right? Because
well, you know what I heard, man.
I don't think we need to justify.
I
think everyone agrees that it's wrong, right? But the point is, did they truly do it? I wouldn't. I mean, there's evidences against it, right? It's not very clear cut.
You don't think Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda was behind 9/11?
I would say no. It doesn't. I would say it's not really clear.
Well, we know the guys. We know we have the trail, the paper trail, the money. We know the Saudi Arabians who did this. I mean, it's all
whatever the case may be. Is it justified for to then go to the Middle East and then
I think it's a waste of time for us to go to the Middle East, and I can understand taking out Osama and retaliation and dismantling a terrorist organization that's attacking our country. That makes sense, but staying in a prolonged war is a waste of time. It causes unnecessary death. We're not welcome. It's a friggin' headache. And we're wasting our national treasure on this. So I believe we should not be in Afghanistan. We should let Afghanistan be Afghanistan and do your own thing.
All right, I respect you for that. That's a good answer, actually. But it's quite sad, actually, because look, let's say how many people died in the Twin Towers. How many?
3,000.
All right. Now, if you compare that to what America, you can debate whether they kill innocents intentionally or unintentionally, right? I'm sure there have been cases where they did it intentionally. There may have been.
But you're talking about criticizing through a moral lens people in a war, and this is a very shady business. So every war is going to have things that happen that are fucked up. War is bad and should be avoided. And I agree that the American presence in Afghanistan lingered on way too long. I mean, it should have been more like what we did in Iraq the first time. Just go in, do what we got to do, and bail. Do not nation build. It's a mess. I mean, your country's a mess with or without America, and you know that. And you got your own problems there, your own groups. So there's more than just one person to be angry with.
But I would say because of the war, more groups came about. All right. So
yeah, but you're blaming the wrong people. You have to, like, people say, oh, America created ISIS or something like that. They didn't do that. Those people had their terrible beliefs, and they were going to do what they were going to do. I mean, the fact that we were involved in a part of their political history, it doesn't hold weight. It's
sad, right?
It's true that we played a part, but it's not our responsibility. We are not the creators of ISIS.
Right. So I respect your decision for leaving. You don't want them. You don't want America to be there, right? But
right. But if you are going to harbor terrorist organizations, then we're going to have an issue because they're going to attack us, and we can't have that. So that's the only caveat.
Right, but I was actually going to compare 3,000 deaths to like more than a million. Right.
There's more deaths, right? But here's the bottom line: we care more about our people than your people. just like you care more about your people than our people. So
Me,
for us,
I would be equal actually. I would say that it's not really, it's not on the same level, right? I mean,
okay,
I would
well,
say that they've suffered more from a humanitarian perspective. Would you not say?
by the sheer numbers, sure. But this is again
Right.
a very weird, twisted game we're playing, where we're comparing, the emotional impact of the deaths of. But yeah, death counts is a death count, and look, it's the justification of this is all over the map. I mean, if you punch me and then I punch you, it's not equal, right? It's not like we're both equally at fault. Hey, we both punched a guy. No, you punched me and then I punched you back in retaliation. Now you can make the case that America went above and beyond that and had war crimes, riddled throughout that affair, and we have. I mean, the stuff we did in Vietnam, and there's a whole list of these things. But in the end, what does that get us? I mean, yes, our military is not perfect. I admit, I agree.
Would you say that America has achieved what they've achieved, like what they expected to achieve in the Middle East? Yeah, go ahead.
What are we supposed to do? Because the larger threat is Islam, and just Islamic terrorist groups. And you and I know that Al Qaeda is not the only one of those. And Osama bin Laden, you kill him, 1,000 new guys pop up. We still got to deal with Al Shabaab
So what's
and
the
Boko
solution?
Haram. And, well, you got to fight. You definitely have to fight. I think the solution is not through violence. Eventually, it's through the demolition of religion. I think it's the religious beliefs that are at the core of this toxic ideology. So I would say information, hopefully the internet, hopefully just more people awakening and thinking independently of this, not just following orders and doing what their parents told them to do. So less tribalism, more critical thought, more investigation into the actual ideas behind religion. There's no God. This is all based off man-made barbarism. So we all just
What's
want to
your
live
name, by the
peacefully.
way?
My name is Devin.
Okay, Devin. Nice to meet you. My name's Lee.
What's up?
So yeah, that was very good. I respect your views.
Well, thanks,
I
man.
just
Enjoy
wanted
it.
to say that do you think democracy is working for the Middle East as you try to implement?
Well, yeah, it's change is slow, isn't it? I mean, we had the Arab Spring, right? And when they're given the ability to vote, they vote for the Muslim Brotherhood. They vote in religion. Religion is a strong man. It is powerful, and that comes with a threat of violence, and that's gonna win over other forms of more tolerant governments. And I would hope that the people had more of a say, and I hope that their societies just evolve in terms of poverty, in terms of education, in terms of the rights, human rights, because they would all benefit from that. So it's not just about democracy.
So you don't think it should be forced upon another group of people?
No, I don't think it's our project. I think it's a waste of time. Why would we invest in that? I mean, we already give money to these countries. We give Egypt like $1 billion a year or something. I don't see why. What are we getting from this?
Right. So you're actually against how the West has intervened.
Of course.
Okay.
But I would say if you just look at the results, if you are from that region, look at how Israel operates. Look at how America, Canada, Australia. You should be wanting this. You should be asking your governments for this, not us telling you to do it.
Cool. Right. So you also made a number of claims about Islam and how. Would you say that these groups are following Islam, or would you say that it's political, more of a
Well, you can answer that very simply. Ask the groups, and they will tell you it's for Islam and for Muhammad and for Allah. So I take them at their word. Now, if you want to get into a no true Scotsman and say, oh, they're not true Muslims, they're perverting the faith, whatever it is, come up with a new word. Fine, the perverted Muslims. The perverted Muslim terrorist groups are a problem. We got to deal with them.
All right. Okay. Because just to finish up, because I would say most Muslims actually are against these ideas.
Thank God.
Actually, and it's a very small group. I say we shouldn't generalize because
I agree. It's not all Muslims. There's a spectrum, but it's not zero. It's a very, very big number. The people that were in support of what happened to Charlie Hebdo is not 100 people. It's not 1,000 people. It's hundreds of millions of Muslims who are in support of that. So
Right.
a small percentage of 1.7 billion people is a huge army at your gates that you got to be concerned about.
Okay. Well, anyways, it was nice speaking to you, Devin.
You as well, man.
Thanks for your time, I guess.
Have a good night.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you, Lee. Okay, so next is Normal Man. Normal Man, you are unmuted. Ready whenever you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
What's it?
Oh, hello. So my question is, it's a bit lighthearted instead of all this serious. It's if in theory you had to eliminate any race, like what one would you go for? Like in theory, you know.
This isn't a trap. I would eliminate the smallest race, so the Inuit or whatever you're going to define as the smallest race, because that would cause the least amount of death. It's a tragic decision. This is like Sophie's choice, but yeah, the Eskimos got to go.
Oh wow, you want to kill the Eskimos? Oh man, I'm judging.
Well, I woke up this morning and that was my desire. I'm glad you finally somebody asked me the question.
You're a horrible person, and I'm judging you for it. You know, like.
I expect
mean, if you
nothing
want,
less.
okay. Right, a more serious question is it like in a historical context, has Islam provided any benefit to society? Like,
no. Globally, I would say no. That's the quick, short answer. I think they try to pretend like they had this golden age and that they were the stewards of science and mathematics. I think they stole most of that. I think that was the Persians that came before them. So I'm calling bullshit
from the Greeks.
Yeah, and I would say that whatever positive contributions you like, oh, they taught us how to shit correctly, the correct way to squat, and beard maintenance. If you want to pick out little things like that and ignore the devastating consequences of Islam that has had on this world and the rivers of blood caused by that religion, be my guest. I think it's a fruitless exercise. So yeah, I'm against it. I'm against Islam.
Yeah, I agree with you totally.
Okay, good. And are you from Edinburgh or?
I'm from
Glasgow?
Scotland. Neither.
My family is comes from the McDonald. No, not sorry, from the McDonald. Jesus, the Campbells. I'm a Campbell, and that is my heritage. A couple generations back.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're probably related.
Wait.
Yeah.
Anyway, whereabouts are you from? Like, actually from?
Born in New York, raised in Los Angeles. Father is from England, but was born in South Africa.
Oh wow, that raises the big stereotype of Americans being able to just pick and choose their heritage. I mean, how do it feel? You know, you're playing into that stereotype.
Well, I'm a dual citizen, so I am both British and American, and I'm fine with it. But I'm more connected to it because I'm a first generation, which it's sad to me that people lose track of their roots.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want another question? I've got a few.
Yeah, well, I'm here. I mean,
oh wow.
Go for it.
Right. What are your thoughts on thoughts?
Oh, on that hoe over there? Yes. I think there are some thoughts out there. I mean, I can understand the resentment towards some women, but I think the greater story is the failure of many men, and it's all sour grapes. I think men want women, and men can't get women, so they masturbate and play video games and hold residual anger. So to me, the whole thing strikes me as sad, and I pity them, and I also just laugh and roll my eyes at them. There is sexism towards women, and especially when you add anonymity, and that's why it's an unwelcoming place. That's why YouTube is like 5% women on YouTube. It's because they get shouted down and intimidated by this negative energy towards them, which is unjustified.
Oh,
okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Normal Man. Next question is going to be from Naho. Naho wants to know, why do you believe people are quick to be proud of or take credit for positive contributions from groups they identify with, sex, race, religion, etc., while at the same time being very quick to separate themselves from the negative or depraved actions of these groups?
Well, I think the person that asked that question already knows the answer, but it's human beings are frail, and we succumb to the worst characteristics that we exhibit. So it's the 7 deadly sins. It's pride, it's vanity, it's ego. I mean, we are trying to beat our chest and say, I'm awesome. Why are you awesome? Well, because the soccer team I support won. but you didn't win. You're not the soccer player. Yeah, but I'm associated with winners. And maybe it's an evolutionary thing. Maybe it's like, I want women to think of me as a successful winner. So therefore, I'm going to brag about how many Nobel Prizes, my group have won. And hopefully that way I can propagate my genetic code. I feel like it's so buried deep within us. We're all just cunty dudes who are into ourselves. I mean, if I get a compliment, if somebody writes to me, if I get a bunch of views on a video or something, a bunch of likes, I enjoy it. I'm like, cool. I did something good. I'm proud of myself. Now, you can take it too far, which we often do, and it could turn into, virtue signaling, and you could just be an obnoxious cunt who's taking pictures of yourself and posting them on Instagram, and we see that all the time. And I like to laugh at it, but it is what it is to be human. If you can de-cunt yourself and rein that in, that tends to come with age and a little bit of experience, a little bit of humility. But it definitely pops up every new generation. It is part of us.
Okay. Next question is going to be from, let's see, Peter Jordanson. Wants to know if you think Western civilization will fall in the next few decades.
Hold on, let me get my sword and my helmet, and we'll talk about the Crusades. And well, with Jordan Peterson debunking the myth that there's 1,000 genders, I think we're pretty much safe. I think we could coast to victory and live happily ever after. He did it! Hooray, Jordan! Western civilization, a discussion about that is grandiose. It's hyperbolic. It's not at stake. It's not in danger. I think we need to protect and actually put in stone our values and our what we want to enshrine, because I thought we had. It's like, but do we believe in the freedom of speech in England, in Germany? Oh, you don't? It's like, well, no, you should, and you should etch that in stone, because guess what? You got other people with other viewpoints, and you have threats. These things are very tenuous. It's not like we're guaranteed for everything just to go swimmingly well, and we're going to end up in Star Trek universe in a couple of generations. No. If anything, we're going to be pulled back into the abyss, into all the mistakes of our ancient past. That's what we see happening all the time. So I think an honest discussion about it is the first step.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next question is going to be from, let's go with Moon. Moon, I think you wanted to ask this one in voice chat, so I'm going to unmute you. Hopefully you're not doing anything awkward. Moon, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. So I'm from California, and I get made fun of because I have a Valley Girl accent.
Uh-huh.
But I'm from LA too, and I used to live in Long Beach. I know you know where that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in LA, Long Beach area, there's a lot of Hispanics, and recently I've noticed that there aren't a lot of Black people anymore.
Snoop Dogg left because he got a bunch of money.
Yeah, there's like not. I noticed that that there's more Mexicans here than people who are probably third, fourth generation here. And I wanted to know what you thought about the left trying to advocate for amnesty of illegal immigrants, them pushing allowing them to have welfare.
Yeah.
Do you think that eventually they're going to go full-blown amnesty for millions of illegals who've entered this country?
That's an interesting problem. It's not one I've actually figured out all the details on, but in theory, see, the thing is, we're trying to make the best of a situation that's gravely effed up. So we're coming in decades after and trying to mop up and work with what we got. So we got all these people here, and we want to be, humane, and we want to do what's right, and we don't want to be evil or, perverse in what we decide to do here. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I think I lean to not deporting people. I mean, but stiffening up immigration policies. So like saying, okay, from here on out, we are going to be severe in how we deal with illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. I mean, other countries do this. This is like Australia will not let you stay there. They will throw your ass out and ban you from ever coming back. And this has helped Australia. I think with America, it's so big and we're so late in the game. Like, for example, you talk about Mexican immigrants in California. No matter what we do, California is going to be majority Mexican. It always will be. They're breeding faster than us, and they're they're the majority. It wasn't like that when I was growing up in LA. So I hear what you're saying there. There's a little tinge of you saying you're not a big fan of there being less blacks and more Mexicans in your area. And I'm not saying,
yeah,
I'm not saying,
I mean, I'm half black myself, and I have
right.
many friends that are Mexican. However, I don't agree with illegal immigration, and I'm not in favor, and I absolutely don't support them staying in the country. I would rather
Mhm.
them be deported, and I also don't think it's fair to people in our country for them to have welfare. I don't think illegal
Mhm.
immigrants who committed a crime deserve welfare. If we
Yeah.
got rid of welfare for illegal, I think illegal
Mhm.
immigration would go down vastly. But
I think you should have rules like that. I'd be open to hear arguments about that. Like, yeah, criminals entering. I think there might be some areas where, like, if you've been here for a couple generations or whatever it is, that we treat you in a slightly different way. Because, yeah, it's a problem. You have to have rules and laws. And if you have a porous border and you're not punishing or sending people back who come in, then that's chaos. There's no order. And what you're doing is you're disrespecting the people, the actual citizens of your country. And you're going to make their life more congested, more crowded. And by the way, it is a foreign culture too. And it's not to say the Mexican culture isn't beautiful and noble and great. It's just, it's not American culture. It's not us. And yes, they are other. I mean, there are Mexican Americans. I understand that's a whole crossover. But, it's not a good thing that I go to an ATM in Los Angeles and I have to tell them if I want English. I don't
yeah,
think that's good.
yeah, like every job in California, you have to be bilingual. It's hard to get like jobs where you have to interact with people. They want bilingual people. They want people, fluent in other languages. And I don't think that's fair to people
Well,
who don't speak those languages.
it's also just out of practical necessity now. There's so many people that speak Spanish that the advertisers are going to be advertising in Spanish, etc. Now, I'm in Buenos Aires right now, and nobody speaks English here. And I would not expect the ATMs to be like, oh, do you want this in English? I understand I'm the outsider, but I also don't take it as an insult. Even though a lot of Argentinians don't like Americans, I don't think that because they are Spanish and speak Spanish that it's somehow against me. And I don't think Mexicans or Mexican Americans should view people wanting to preserve English-speaking American culture and have a rightful concern about a massive influx of non-Americans into their country as being a threat and being something that they don't really want. I think it's perfectly valid.
Thank you.
You are very welcome.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Hyosung. Had two questions, actually. His first question was, have you read the Bible? Second question is kind of related. Do you think maybe you're wrong?
Well, I first get down on my hands and knees and acknowledge that you are my intellectual superior as a Korean Christian. I was in Korea not so long ago in Seoul, and I noticed a lot of Christian churches, a lot of that shit popping up. In fact, 3 Christian Korean women came to my door and tried to convert me. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are really buying into this stuff. Great food, but yeah, that religiosity and that trend is backward and it's got to go. Now, what was the first question again? Could I be wrong? Or that was the second.
Have you read the Bible, and
yeah.
do you think you might be wrong?
No, I am not self-hating. There's no way I'm reading the Bible. I've read portions of it. I've researched the Bible and its teachings. I've been exposed to religious thought, to Christianity as a whole, to preachers, to sermons, I'm not ignorant of what Christianity is. I find a lot of the Bible to be A, boring, B, irrelevant, C, just badly written and a waste of time. And as far as could I be wrong? Yes, I could be wrong, but I am not, is the answer to that.
Okay, that's pretty simple. Next question is going to be from, oh God, Phoenix, why? Okay, Phoenix, I'm going to read this out. Let's see. Question. Based on Descartes, I don't know, this fucker. Descartes, yeah. If our universe is limited for our understanding, and also our potential of understanding is limited, how can humanity has faith on something powerful and limitless that is not exist? Where this faith comes from, how this faith was born, why did we need it?
Well, he answers his question in the question. The reason why we came up with faith was because we were scared and clueless, and it was dark, and the night is dark and full of terror. So we needed something to comfort us, and we needed answers. We don't like saying, I don't know. Hey, what are those bright lights up in the sky? I have no fucking idea. Cool. Let's go out and hunt a boar and try to stay alive, and let's fuck. Like, no, that's not how human beings think. We need safety and security, so we deluded ourselves and came up with ludicrous answers, but at least they were answers. And we said, let's have faith in this. And the reason why faith is necessary and why it was born is because it's a frightening thing to grapple with. The fact that you are going to die, the fact that we are here not because of some grand design, but by the freakest of chance, we are here. And this is unsettling. And we are weak, we are mortal, we're only human. We are not these impervious, just rock solid, just unemotional beings who can just strongly and confidently deal with this set of facts. It is devastating. And we bond together and we lie to ourselves. That's been our solution.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next question is going to be from Mo. Mo, I'm going to skip that question for now. Too Spooky wants to know if white genocide is happening in your opinion, and if so, how do you think we should stop it?
Well, I've already said my criticism of the term white genocide, but yes, white people are being killed. It depends of the context. If you're talking about South Africa, then that is a legitimate thing. And I have family in South Africa. They have been attacked by black people. The government is openly calling for the dispossession of white people, completely racist. They are overtly violent towards white people, and the farmers are being disproportionately killed. So it is savage and brutal and a total disaster. As far as in America, the dwindling demographics of white people has as much to do with the fact that Mexicans crank out babies and stream into our border as it does with anything that white people are doing or not doing. So yes, our percentage is going down, but I mean, still, there are more white people today than there ever have been in the history of time. So it's not exactly a genocide, and we shouldn't be afraid or frightened. If you're talking about the balance of peoples in a given country, then yes, you can have concerns. Yes, you can, I'm in favor of white nations. I've lived my life in white nations. They are the best nations on earth outside of Korea and Japan. And they have a glorious history. White people know how to build up cities and countries. And we have a long, impressive track record and have accomplished a tremendous amount. We've earned this lifestyle. We've built it. And so it should be preserved. It doesn't mean it has to be exclusionary, but you got to play by the rules or get the fuck out. Basically, that's how I see it. And yeah, I mean, don't get hysterical. Let's all breathe a little bit. We're going to be okay. Game of Thrones is going to still come out, and the NBA season's going to kick off, and Eurovision's going to happen. So let's not worry.